The kid is all right. Swing and a high towering fly ball to left. Mangum at the track, at the wall. It is gone. Jordan Walker hits a two-run homer.
4 in a row on the road is not easy. So these guys did a really nice job of coming out. You never want to ask for schemes, but at the same time, I think it brought out the best in everyone in a day game, knowing that you win the first 3, you can come out and kind of lock in against their best and see what you can do. And the guys, I mean, with JJ starting off the game the way he did, it just lit a fire on everybody. So it was a really good series.
It's what it sounded like on Cardinals TV yesterday as the Cardinals sweep the Pirates. You can hear our full breakdown of that series and of the Cardinals on the latest edition of the Redbird Report at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex is out today. He's with his daughter at her field day. He will be back in with us on Monday. T-Bone, a really nice series by the Cardinals, and it really starts with the 2 guys that you heard in that return there, Jordan Walker and J.J. Wetherholt. They've been the story of the season thus far. You look at what J.J. Wetherholt has done on the season, kind of amazing. He's got an 856 OPS. You told me about this earlier today. He's actually 3rd among rookies in OPS so far this season, which seems crazy. That means there are 2 other guys that have somehow been even better than him offensively so far this year. But you add in what he's done on the bases with 4 steals. You add in what he's done defensively so far this year as one of the best defenders at second base in all of Major League Baseball, regardless of how old you are. Pretty damn good start for him. And then you've got Jordan Walker, who maintains an OPS at this point after the month of April of 905. He has already set a new career high for whatever you think this is worth in wins above replacement on the season. Yeah, more this year than he's had at any other season so far in his major league career. Again, it is May 1st today, and he's already done that. It's just amazing. And these guys are batting first in cleanup in your lineup. We knew that Burley and Herrera would be good hitters. The change in outlook for this team really comes down to those 2 players. How much are you believe in what we've seen so far, T-Bone?
It's hard to deny what we're seeing. I still want to give a little bit more time just because we're waiting to see what adjustments Major League Baseball is going to make. But you're not wrong that these are the 2 guys that have changed the outlook for the St. Louis Cardinals, because with J.J. Wetherholt, look, he started hitting right away, or at least started getting on base right away for the Cardinals. Let's not forget about the hole they had in the cleanup spot for the first, 2 weeks of the season when they had Mason Wynn there because they were waiting to see what Jordan Walker would look like. And now that you've got Walker in that spot, you've got a legitimate 1 through 4 in your lineup. Maybe you're missing a little bit of pop that some of the best lineups have, but you've got enough in there to be a top 15 offense in Major League Baseball from the top 4 guys in the lineup. And I love what we're seeing from him right now. I mean, Wetherholt's doing damage against everybody right now. And the part that has shocked me with his game is his power. 7 home runs in the first month of the season. I would have probably said he probably has 7 home runs after the first 2 to 2.5 months of the season, because I thought he was going to be more of an average hitter, where he was going to be about league average. He was going to be more of a slap singles hitter, doubles maybe in the gap, not pure pole side home run power like he showed yesterday against Paul Skeens. Yeah, these guys are changing the outlook of the season for the Cardinals. It feels like through the first month, they are accelerating the timeline for the St. Louis Cardinals, because the offense was, I thought, their biggest question mark coming into the year. We knew the pitching was going to be lackluster. We knew that coming into the year. I thought it would be a little bit better, but we knew that, okay, their best guys aren't here yet. This was it for the offense. It was, hey, Walker, Wetherholt, and Gorman are the guys that you really, maybe not Wetherholt you need answers on, but Walker, Gorman, you need answers on this season. Mm-hmm. And if those guys fail, okay, now it's really hard to see where those big boppers are coming in the middle of your lineup. Gorman's been okay. Walker has been unbelievable. And if he continues this, now you're talking about an offense that can really lead you through this rebuild.
It just feels different. Everything about this team, the vibes feel different, and I don't know what that means long term. I don't know if this is a team that can win 85-plus games. I don't know where this season is heading. I'm glad that we're having these conversations. Like, we just got a text. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. This is a real text that we just got in from the 314. BK question. I know this might be crazy, but the Cardinals could potentially win some games this postseason. Think about their starters. May, McGreevy, maybe Palante. The bullpen could include Dobbins, Leahy, Romero, Graceffo, O'Brien. It could be competitive. Now, whether you think that's a ridiculous statement or something that actually makes some sense, The fact that it's even a text that we're getting at this point in the season on May 1st speaks to where we're at right now. You're having thoughts, some of you, myself included, about this team that I didn't anticipate having at any point, certainly not a month into the regular season. I thought we'd be talking about a team that is 13-18, not one that's the reverse of that at 18-13. And now I can go to what I saw yesterday with the offense. The Cardinals have scored 155 runs so far this year through the first 31 games of the regular season. The only other times that they've done that in the last decade are 2019 and 2016, and that speaks to why it feels different. When you're watching these games, you don't feel like it's a slog. You don't feel like if they give up 3, the game is over because there's no way this lineup could produce 4, right? You know J.J. Wetherholt could do something special at any moment. You know Jordan Walker at any moment could hit a home run. You know that Alec Burleson is going to drive in whoever is on in front of him because he already has 25 RBIs at this point in the season, which is something that the Cardinals, again, at this point in the year, have only seen done two other times in the last decade. Ozuna did it in 2019, and Nolan Arenado, who was a legitimate MVP candidate in 2022, he did it at this point in the season. And that's what Burley has been able to do so far. It's a different feel for the offense, and it's because you have a legit top 4. How many times, T-Bone, over the last, 5 years since we've been doing the show, have we looked at the Cardinals lineup and been like, man, if you squint, you could kind of see it, but they're missing a 2-hole hitter, or they're missing a cleanup hitter.
A lot of times it was a leadoff hitter at times.
Sure. This year you look at it and I'm like, man, I don't know what it's going to look like a month from now, a week from now, a year from now. But today, you look at the Cardinals' top 4 in their lineup, you can compare that against basically anybody in baseball just looking at production. Forget the names. Strip the names apart. Look at the production. Those guys stack up right now, man. And that's what changes the outlook for this team today.
Yeah, they haven't had this good of a lineup from at least 1 through 4 since probably 2022, the last time they made the playoffs, because at that point it would have been Donovan or Newpar was the leadoff hitter, which is a pretty good on-base guy, and then it would have been Goalie, Arenado, and Pujols. Like that's what you're looking at. That's the best lineup that they had in the last couple of years, and this one's getting closer towards that. Walker's providing that power, Weatherholt's getting on base, and then Burley and Herrera are just decent pop bats to have in the middle, but they do a good job of just driving in runs, as you mentioned with Burleson there. It's unbelievable because I thought it was going to be their biggest problem all season long. And when we would talk about like, well, what about if so-and-so gets to 20 home runs? I said, yeah, it's just Burley and Herrera, and then we'll just see what happens. And right now, they've got everybody. They're even getting lottery tickets to hit right now. And what I mean by that is Nathan Church looks like a guy that looks pretty good so far for the St. Louis Cardinals. So it's been unbelievable to see what they're doing. They are making it interesting. It's why you heard me yesterday yelling about the bullpen needing to churn, because I think if they could fix the bullpen and they get a little bit better pitching from that rotation, they could be a potential playoff team. Now, I don't think they're winning anything in the playoffs. They're not good enough for that. But could they sneak into the playoff picture with like 85 wins? They absolutely could if the offense continues to do this.
Man, I just look at what you have with those two guys, and I don't know how many conversations we've had over the years about, hey, they're lacking a star, they're lacking a star, they're lacking a star. Okay, they've got Goldie and Arenado, sure, they're lacking a star in his prime. They're lacking homegrown stars they can keep around for the long haul and build around. I don't know what the answer to this question is. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I'm guessing it's since like Albert and Yachty. In the last 15 years, I'm not sure you've had this, but for the first time in a really long time, it feels as though you have the potential, at least, to be developing 2 young, homegrown, cost-controlled stars in your lineup. And Walker and J.J. Wetherholt are the 2 guys that have that potential. You could throw Ivan Herrera into the mix as well. He feels kind of more like the Matt Carpenter of this conversation, where is he a star? Is he our star? Where like locally you view him that way, and nationally, people maybe don't quite view him that way. Burleson, kind of same conversation there. Weatherholt and Walker have that potential. There's no squinting that's necessary. Those guys could be put into that conversation, especially Jordan Walker, where you could legitimately see him put up a 35 and 100 type of a season this year. That's now in his range of outcomes. Can't remember the last time we've been able to talk about that with two homegrown stars locally in their early 20s.
It probably is Albert and Yachty, because like you think back to those other teams beyond Albert after 2011, it was all outside stars, right? It was Matt Holliday was brought in. Berkman had the 1 year. He was outside. Beltran was outside the organization. Same with Goldie Arenado. Pujols, when he came back, was technically an outside addition, I would say. If you're talking about like two legitimate impact bats, though, which I would call Wetherholt and Walker, and no offense to Yachty, but Yachty was more the defense made him into stardom. He ended up becoming a good bat.
Yeah.
If you're going by like actual bats, I don't know how far you have to date back for that to actually occur. Is it the 80s potentially when they would have developed those middle of the order bats? But those were like a different brand of quote unquote impact bats. That's how far back you have to go to find for them to have two guys that are legitimate hitters in the order where they could be like 30% above league average.
So I'm looking at this right now. Players under the age of 24 with at least an OPS of 800 and 400 or more plate appearances. So basically regulars in the lineup, at least an 800 OPS at the age that we're seeing right now from Walker and Wetherholt. Cardinals to do that in the last 25 years are Nolan Gorman in 2023, Paul DeJong in 2017, Colby Rasmus in 2010.
Oh, that's a blast from the past.
Albert from 01 to 04.
God.
J.D. Drew in 2000, Fernando Tatis in 1999. In other words, you haven't had this where you've had two players at that age in the same season be able to put that kind of a year together. It's unique, man. What we're seeing right now from the St. Louis Cardinals is incredibly unique, and it's been a hell of a lot of fun to be able to watch. Real quick, before we get to the Cardinals pitching decisions that they're going through, we'll get to that on the other side. I do want to hear from Lance Lynn, who was on the Cardinals Territory podcast yesterday. I thought he summarized it pretty well on J.J. Wetherholt. Take a listen.
Jim, some people have big nuts, and it seems like this kid does. There's really no other way to say it. Like, let's be honest, opening day homers in St. Louis, like this is why when we talked to Ollie about when did you know he was ready, like Ollie knew he was ready real quick. It wasn't one of those things where you had to figure it out. It was like this kid had it, he knew what he was trying to do, and he knows what he's trying to accomplish day in and day out. I think we found something really good here, and it fits well with what they're trying to build around in St. Louis.
Well
Big
said.
nuts.
I can't top that. That's pretty well said by Lance Lynn.
If you're looking for guys that had at least a 750 OPS at this age, 2023, and years in which there were multiple players that are doing kind of similar to what we're seeing with JJ and Walker. 2023, you had Gorman, Walker, and Nootbaar do this, age 25 or younger. In 2017, you had DeJong and Grichuk do it. In 2016, you had Grichuk, Piscotty, and Aledmus Diaz, who all did it. In 2002, it was Edgar Renteria and Albert Pujols who did it, but that's not a homegrown player in Edgar Renteria who was able to do it. 2001, it was Pujols and J.D. Drew. That might be the most similar to what we're seeing right now. 2000, it was J.D. Drew and Edgar Renteria. And in 1999, it was J.D. Drew and Fernando Tatis. So I would say the J.D. Drew and Albert Pujols one is probably the closest thing to what we're witnessing right now with J.J. Wetherholt and Jordan Walker. I'd say those are that's the closest comp. Maybe you could argue Paul DeJong and Randall Grichuk in 2017. There was some real excitement there, but Grichuk was a guy that you traded for, and DeJong, it was like just basically pure home run power. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a whole lot more that you were building around there, but he played shortstop. I could see the value in that. It was basically 2023, Newt, Walker, Gorman, 2001, Pujols, and J.D. Drew. Pretty good company that you're keeping right now with Wetherholt and Walker. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to be joined by Mike McKenna, the former NHL goalie. He'll join us to talk a little bit about what we saw last night in the NHL. Edmonton and Dallas both eliminated from the postseason. We'll talk to him about that, what it means for the future of the Western Conference. That's coming up in about 15 minutes. Jake Neighbours, the Blues young forward, joins us coming up at 12:15, and we'll talk to our guy Brad Thompson coming up in the 1 o'clock hour as well. Want to hear from you. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We've got the YouTube chat at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. Coming up next, the Cardinals have already made their choice on Hunter Dobbins. Was it the right one? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex, not Alex, just T-Bone. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Mike McKenna joins us in about 15 minutes. The former NHL goalie joins us weekly on behalf of Macadoodles. The Cardinals have made a couple of roster moves, the first of which is sending Hunter Dobbins down after his spot start yesterday. So it will not be a true six-man rotation. It was a spot start, as Derek Gould told us it would be expected earlier this week when he joined us here on BK and Ferrario. The corresponding move? There are a couple of them. One, Jared Schuster, the lefty, has been selected from Memphis. He's going to get an opportunity to be in the bullpen over the weekend. Two, T-Bone's guy, Luis Peralta, who he said should be on the Major League roster yesterday, has been designated for assignment to make room for Jared Schuster on the 40-man.
That's sad. I wanted to see what Peralta had. Now, granted,
T-Bone yesterday was arguing with me saying, hey, this Luis Peralta, you got to get him on the Major League roster. It is time already to DFA our guy Brule. He needs to get out of here and bring up Peralta. The Cardinals said, not only are we not bringing up Peralta, we are going to DFA him, expose him to waivers, and we'll see if we're able to get him back on the Memphis roster afterwards.
Yeah. Not cool, Cardinals. Not cool.
Almost exactly 24 hours after we had that conversation, they said, screw T-Bone, we're done with this.
Yeah. I realized, too, yesterday after our argument that they couldn't even call up Peralta because he had to be down there for 15 days. After they claimed him, they optioned him down, so he wasn't even up or eligible to be called up. I'm not surprised by this move, honestly. I mean, they wanted some length out of their bullpen, so you call up Schuster, who, be honest, I think we all forgot, totally cleared waivers and was down in Memphis. It makes sense. I still am in favor of churning through Brule when we get the opportunity. But now you got to wait and see if Peralta clears waivers. Because my assumption yesterday when I realized he had to wait 15 days was, okay, I bet this is kind of a little bit of a timeline for Brule, right? You see what Peralta looks like down in the minors for his 15 days. You see what Brule looks like in that time. And if Brule continues to be bad, then you make that switch. You DFA him. You had Schuster down there as depth in the minor leagues, as we see that they selected him. And I thought, okay, they'll just bring him up. And if they need that depth, boom, you could put Schuster on the 40-man and Brule spot. There goes that plan, BK. There goes that plan.
Somebody on the text line from the 573. Guys, Schuster has looked decent for Memphis. I can't speak to the stuff. I will tell you this. In his last two outings, he went 1 2/3 innings, gave up 5 hits and 2 earned runs. And then in the most recent outing against Indianapolis, went 1 inning. In that 1 inning, gave up 4 hits, did not have a strikeout, and 3 earned runs. So, again, I can't speak to the stuff. Maybe it's looked really good and it's been better than what the results would indicate, but the results have sucked over the last couple of outings. So this one, to me, just says, hey, we need some length over the weekend. We're going to use him in very specific situations. We're going to use him exclusively against left-handed hitters would be my assumption. And we'll see if we can get a couple of good outings before we send him back down and expose him to waivers once again. That would be my guess on their plan with him. In his major league career, he's been a little better against lefties than he has been against righties. So that would be my guess on what the plan is.
Yeah, this is them preparing for the worst-case scenario when the Dodgers come to town.
Sure.
That's exactly what this is. I mean, you've seen what the rotation's been like. You've got Liberatore going this week, and we just saw he got rocked in his last outing. They're preparing for, which I think is fair. When the Dodgers come to town, odds are they might blow you out. So you've got to have somebody in that bullpen that way they can eat that for one day, and then you can option them down and make some roster moves. So I think it makes a ton of sense from that perspective.
Do you like them sending Hunter Dobbins down this quickly? Because you could have seen a scenario where they go to a true 6-man rotation and they wait for a roster move until they really need it to be able to improve their bullpen, and then they could have sent down somebody else, like, for example, Swanson. Could have sent him out, brought in a new arm, whether that's Schuster or somebody else from the AAA level. Do you like them going about it this way, or would you have preferred them sticking with Hunter Dobbins for another week?
I actually prefer to go this route just because you make the spot start and then boom, you're right back to a full bullpen. Rather than waiting around to see if things go awry and then you got to make some roster moves, I would rather just fill up the pen right now and just send down Dobbins. I mean, he was fine in that outing yesterday. You could tell he still has some work, some polishing to do down at the AAA level. So I don't mind this decision to send him down and just immediately get back to a full bullpen rather than trying to play that Memphis shuttle game. And they only had a handful of options down there anyways, like it was Roycroft. They couldn't bring back Fernandez. They couldn't bring back I think he was really the only one that was down there, if I remember correctly. But it was basically Roycroft. Otherwise, you had to select somebody from the 40-man like they did today. So I don't mind making the move now. Get back to your 5-man rotation with a full bullpen.
Yeah, the other options for you down at AAA right now would have been Luis Peralta, who they just decided a DFA.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
You could have selected Luis Gastelum and Jared Schuster and Scott Blewett. Those would have been your other options, but my guess is they're going to send one of these guys down again relatively soon, so you probably don't want to pick up Scott Blewett. Otherwise, you might end up losing him via waivers. So you keep him down in AAA, you play the asset management game. You've already seen, like, Major League Baseball just clearly doesn't value Jared Schuster, for better or for worse. So you can call him up, use him a little bit, and you're good to go. I think this is probably the right way to go about it. I would have liked to have seen another start out of Dobbins, but given what lies ahead with LA and then Milwaukee and then San Diego, I just think you could have found yourself really light in the bullpen in one or multiple of those games, and then you're exposed and you were playing down a man in the bullpen when you didn't necessarily need to. So I understand the decision to go this way. I was curious, though, are they going to use Hunter Dobbins in the Michael McGreevy role from a year ago, or is this a scenario where they'll use him more similar to like what Steven Matz was a year ago? And they've clearly decided he's in the Michael McGreevy role. He's going to come up and down. He'll be a spot starter for us, and then he'll stay on schedule down at AAA, which honestly probably is the best thing for his development. I think that's what you're seeing here is they are maximizing his development over maximizing whatever the best thing is for the Major League Baseball club right now, because Dobbins is probably a better option for you out of the bullpen over the next week than Jared Schuster is. But Dobbins hasn't done that, where he's been in the bullpen for one turn through the rotation and then goes back into the rotation. So this is probably the better way to go about it.
And I think the injury to Fitz helped play a factor into this as well, because if you put him in the bullpen, we can say you kind of use him as the long reliever / mop-up guy that comes in. But odds are you can't. It's hard to kind of plan for those. As we hear all the time, it's tough to really figure out when to deploy a long man. So you end up getting him in the match role, like you're saying. Well, that's an inning at a time, right? Maybe 2 innings at a time at best. Well, then he slowly but surely starts to lose his built-up arm, and he can't go. You know, if you had to start him, if someone got hurt, like if Libby went down, for example, tonight, well, then you'd be back to trying to build him back up, which is a tough process.
Yep.
And with Fitz being down, they're down to truly 6 starters. And I know some people would say, well, does that matter? It clearly does. It's clearly playing some part into their decision-making. On top of, they want him to develop as a starter, like you said. He's a guy that had success last year with Boston in 12 starts, barely above a 4 ERA, had some decent stuff. You want to keep that guy stretch out and use him as a depth starter.
Somebody on the text line from the 573 said, guys, Zimmerman is another one down there. No doubt. He's somebody that I wonder if they decide to stick with a 6-man rotation, what they could do is just send Schuster back down when it's time for this next spot start, which would probably be, I'm guessing, like Wednesday-ish against Milwaukee. It's a home start, and maybe you go with Zimmerman in that spot. He last started on the 29th, so 2 days ago. The timing wouldn't totally work out, but maybe you could start him a little bit earlier than that and go with like him on Tuesday, something, push everybody else back a day. And what that would allow you to do is you call up Zimmerman, you send down Schuster, and you make it work that way on the 40-man roster. What that would do, though, is it would potentially expose Zimmerman to waivers.
Yeah.
And then somebody else could potentially pick him up as you send him back down. So that is the potential risk. And he has been pretty good for you so far down at AAA. He's probably been the most productive starter for you down there.
Yeah, and he's a veteran, so I would think you would probably lose him through waivers if you tried to do that.
And that's the risk.
Yeah, and because their depth is still developing behind Zimmerman and Dobbins in Motts and Matthews, my guess is they wouldn't risk potentially losing him.
But the thing you could do, though, is you could then put him into the bullpen. You could shift him into a bullpen role at the major league level and see how his stuff is playing up, because I never know how much to value this, but he has had legit strikeout stuff down at AAA so far. So maybe he's somebody who could play up a little bit coming out of the bullpen as well. There's some options here, depending on the direction that they want to go. But one of those options will not be Hunter Dobbins. He's been sent down. He is going to be down there for at least the next couple of weeks, and we'll see the direction they decide to go with that. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up next, Mike McKenna, the former NHL goalie, will join us to talk about what lies ahead for the St. Louis Blues and how they can catch these teams in the Central Division. Dallas, I thought, was one of the best teams in the NHL this year. They're done after their first-round matchup against the Minnesota Wild. How do you catch Minnesota, Dallas, and Colorado? We'll ask Mike McKenna next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Yesterday, the Cardinals took down the Pirates 10-5 as they complete the 4-game sweep in Pittsburgh. They return home tonight where they start a 3-game set with the LA Dodgers. 7:15 will be first pitch. Emmett Sheehan will be on the mound for LA. Matthew Liberatore will get the start for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, you can hear the Springfield Thunderbirds take on the Providence Bruins in Game 1 of their Calder Cup playoff matchup. We'll have puck drop at 6:05. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the former NHL goalie. He's the one, the only Mike McKenna joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Doing great. It's a beautiful day outside. Got a whole weekend ahead of us. High noon transfusions just showed up in the place. They'll sell out by the end of the weekend. And there's plenty of playoff hockey and upsets, fellas. Unbelievable to see what's happened around the NHL.
It's been a lot of fun, and that's something we're going to discuss later on today. I want to get your thoughts on it. Last night, 2 big games, 2 elimination games in the Western Conference, with the Wild eliminating the Dallas Stars, who I thought could legitimately win the Stanley Cup this year, and then you saw the Ducks take down the Edmonton Oilers, and it sounds like that team is at a crossroads right now as well. Mike, what did you make of this? 2 teams with Stanley Cup aspirations, both eliminated in the first round of the Western Conference.
You know, the Oilers against the Ducks that's a pretty big surprise on the surface, because none of us expect that. Any team that's got Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, we go down the list and always talk about those players. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I mean, you can just keep going. You're not expected to lose. And they've had visits to the Cup Finals in recent years. They've always been in the mix. But it just continues to haunt that team that they can't play defense. They just can't. And you just can't pin this on goaltending anymore for Edmonton. This is just an utter lack of building a proper team. And they're so top-heavy with those top-end talents at forward. I just don't think they've been able to invest properly on the backside. And then you go up against a team like the Ducks that were reinvigorated with Coach Q coming in, that have lots of young talent that's reaching maturity. They changed the culture of that room this year, which – guys, ironically, Trevor Zegras ends up in Philadelphia, and Philly's now doing great. So talk about a move that made sense for both teams, that's made both teams better. This is one of those, I think, that the Flyers and the Ducks can objectively look at. Losing Trevor Zegras in Anaheim, him going to Philly, it made both teams better. I love the swag that Anaheim's playing with. They're really fun to watch right now, that young talent showing. And Edmonton, once again, just found a way to lose. It's incredible to see with that much talent.
Well, Mike, you mentioned that Zegras trade, and I don't know if you could say that the Ducks just made that trade and they sold low on him just to make a trade for trade's sake to change things up. But that's something that we've talked about on this show with Jordan Kyrou. Could he be the piece that they move as their Trevor Zegras, where they move him for a change of scenery and then they bring somebody else back in and it could potentially work for both sides?
For sure. It's a culture shift thing. And this is – I want to be very careful and clear to make sure that this isn't a bad apple situation with people, okay? I think Zegras was set up to fail in Anaheim in the first place. He's not the type of player with a Pat Verbeek running an organization that's going to work. It's just not going to happen. I'm sure you guys may have memories of Pat Verbeek, I do at least, in the old arena, driving everybody hog wild because he was such a rat. He was so hard to play against. It's just the opposite of what Zegras has brought previously. Now, Tocchet and Philly got a lot out of him, which is just great to see. I think it's the same thing with Kyrou. You know, sometimes you can add by subtracting, but I also think Kyrou carries enough weight that if a deal could be made, he's still going to get tangible pieces coming back the other direction. And then in today's world, you're always thinking about salary cap. And, you know, despite Army saying we've got our 2 goaltenders, Benner and Hofer, which, hey, man, if they roll into next year with them, great. There's still a whole lot of added benefit in shedding $6 million in salary if they were to trade Binnington, and that's a plus. That's a win. Even if they don't get a great player in return, that stuff all matters in today's world.
We're talking to Mike McKenna here on 101 ESPN, former NHL goalie, and he joins us weekly here on BK and Ferrario. Mike, I heard from T-Bone while you guys were off of the air. He said you want to talk about coaches today here with us. What was your big takeaway? I'm assuming this is something related to the postseason. What's been your big takeaway on coaching and its impact in this postseason so far?
Well, look at the talent that's been doing really well across the league right now. It's not just young coaches. Although it's there, there's been a youth movement, whether it's in management, whether it's in coaching. Dan Muse in Pittsburgh, he did a really nice job this year. They ran out of gas. They weren't able to get there. Knobloch in Edmonton's a very good coach, but he can't get that team across the board. I just think there's value in having people that know what they're doing here. And, Quenneville, fantastic. Okay, his reputation precedes him. Tocchet, he's always had teams that were pretty good, but he finally has some horses and has done a great job. But I think with the Blues, what really intrigues me is Jim Montgomery's not going anywhere. He shouldn't go anywhere. They let go of Mike Weber. Claude Julien's not coming back. What's that bench going to look like next year? Dave Alexander, the goaltending coach of the Blues, was on the bench for the last third of the season. As a goalie, as somebody who also thinks the world of Dave Alexander, I love that because it's giving credence to what goalies can bring to the table as a coach. But does he revert back to strictly being goalie coach? Does he stay on the bench? Who do they bring in as assistants? Do they bring in somebody who has been freshly let go? Do they bring in talent from the American League? I actually believe that that's the most intriguing piece of the St. Louis Blues going into next season, unless there's huge trades made. I want to see the credentials of who they bring in as assistants, what their roles are going to be. And guys, I want to see who runs the penalty kill and the penalty play, or the power play and the penalty kill. I want to see that. I think it's incredibly intriguing.
Mike, do you see a scenario where we could see the Blues? You mentioned them adding those assistant coaches, which they're going to be looking for, where that could almost be their quote-unquote big addition of the offseason, and they just kind of run it back with the roster that they have?
It could be the secret weapon. I still think the roster is going to require some tweaks and changes, and I don't expect that. I don't expect them to be stagnant this offseason. I do think the draft is really the pressure point for the St. Louis Blues. I don't think it's as much at free agency because they don't really have anybody that's up against that wall contractually. So, the draft is going to be prime time here late June for the Blues to potentially make a move on something. But if you want to change course on your team, it's amazing what a coach can do. Truly. Dan Muse in Pittsburgh, right off the bat. We saw it with the Washington Capitals when Spencer Carberry came in. The job he did several years ago completely invigorated a dead roster. It's generally the head coach you look to, but I know from experience, especially as a goaltender, that those assistant coaches are your conduit. They're the details guys. They are the ones that can make or break you sometimes. And if you get someone in there that's hungry, that's experienced, that also is willing to accept their job as an assistant coach. I'm thinking of Jay Verdi, who's in Philadelphia right now. He's a St. Louis. He's a Cahokia product, guys. Jay Verdi, assistant coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. This is the type of guy you need to succeed. They go under the radar, but if the Blues can find the right mix on that, I think they'll be in a great spot.
The Blues are done, but the NHL playoffs continue, and so do the AHL playoffs. We'll have the Thunderbirds versus the Bruins tonight here on 101 ESPN. Puck drop coming up at 6:05 here on your home of the Blues and the home of the Thunderbirds for the playoffs, 101 ESPN. Mike McKenna is the former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every week here on BK and Ferrario, does so on behalf of the fine folks over at Macadoodles. And Mike, I've been hearing the bell ring behind you, which means we're already seeing some people get over there at about 11:45 on a Friday morning. What can people expect when they walk through the doors today over at Macadoodles?
Well, it has become really popular, fellas. We've had a couple of weeks ago, we had somebody waiting in the parking lot for the Friday afternoon drop and Friday morning today. Yeah, it really is. So today's word of the day is squirrel. I'm looking at Squirrel Works Urban Chestnut Brewing Company Hazy IPA right now. So the first person to walk through the doors at Macadoodles, ring the bell, say the word squirrel at the top of their lungs, may purchase a bottle of Blanton's single barrel at $89.97, standard MSRP, and we'd be very happy to see it. Today we only have one on hand. We will have some other bundles available. I have a bundle of our Planters barrel pick, a 10-year whiskey out of Union, Missouri, absolutely delicious, bundled up with Eagle Rare today. I have 6 of those bundles available at $124.97. So you want some great whiskey, come on in. We also got the high noon transfusions that just came in. People have been calling about this for 2 weeks, guys. This is the transfusions taking over the world. The golf drink, well, High Noon's making it now. We got 6 packs of that on the shelves, ready to rock, 10 cases. Looking forward to seeing everybody here. We just had a fantastic event yesterday with Caduceus and Merkin Vineyards, which is Maynard James Keenan from Tool and Pucifer in a perfect circle. It's his wine. And we got to thank your neighbors at the Rizzuto Show for helping us out so much yesterday and giving us some publicity. So everything here at Macadoodles at the corner of Bryan and Feisey Road, just north of the Page Extension. We're squirreling around today, baby, and you got the Derby tomorrow. So come in and get your mint julep. Everything you need.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say T-Bone's going to be preparing some of those mint juleps for himself tomorrow. It should be a really nice weekend here in St. Louis. The weather's looking great over the next 7 to 10 days. It's legitimate spring weather. I feel like we skipped spring, and then now we are back to the spring weather. Be a lot of fun, and you can make sure that you get all of those libations for yourself over at Macadoodles. Hey, Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week. Enjoy yourself this weekend.
Sounds great. Have a great weekend. And shout out to my Friday morning line mate, Bob Collette. He's got the trifecta going. 65th birthday, retires, and he's got a Kentucky Derby party. So here's to you, BC. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Love it. You got it. That's Mike McKenna. Appreciate his time as always joining us here on BK and Ferrario. We'll continue the hockey conversation coming up in about 30 minutes with Jake Neighbours, the Blues forward. He's going to join us here on BK and Ferrario. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Let your friends know Jake Neighbours joins us in 30 minutes on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise, here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. Jake Neighbours, Blues forward, joins us in a little less than 30 minutes. From the 314, guys, I know that things can change, but as of right now, we have to think that when Nuke comes back, Church becomes the starting center fielder, right? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. As of right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, right now, he's been the better hitter, I think you can argue he's been the better fielder than Victor Scott. I think they both get similar jumps, but he's got a cannon of an arm. And if you go back and look at that Pirates game yesterday, there was a fly ball to deepish right center, I would call it, with first and second and either 0 or 1 outs, and both runners tagged in advance. Like, I'm sorry, like, I know the Cardinals would push back on the arm thing when Tommy Edman went out there. That can't happen, right? You can't allow from one base runner to be in scoring position to suddenly there be two because you don't have a strong enough arm to get a throw into second base.
From Jenna Tolles, if you guys had to enter a hot dog eating contest, how many do you think you would get down? I would do horrible in a hot dog eating contest. I don't enjoy hot dogs enough. If we were doing like a pizza eating competition, that's where I could have some success. I would do very well in that. I could put down a full pizza by myself if we were doing a competition.
I could do a full pizza too. I'm with you on that one. Hot dogs, I don't know. Like,
I could do like 2. I'm out.
I could probably do like 6, but it wouldn't be like anything fast and as impressive as Joey Chestnut. Also, I like the way you first said that. At first when you said you hotties, I was like, oh, well, thank you.
From the 636, who's more likely to turn it around this season, the Phillies or the Mets? T-Bone, you said there's some news on the Mets?
Yeah. David Stearns told MLB.com this is not a manager problem, and they do not plan to make a change at the managerial position.
There you go. Phillies decided the opposite. They decided that, at least in part, is a manager problem, so they fired theirs. Who do you think is more likely to turn it around, Phillies or Mets, T-Bone?
I think it's Phillies. The reason I say that is the Mets. I don't know what it is that's wrong. There's something's wrong in the drinking water because that for whatever reason this locker room cannot seem to figure it out. They collapsed last year in the second half. Stearns made all these changes, and I think they're worse off from those changes. Right? They never really upgraded over Alonso. They added a nice piece in Bichette, but he's not an upgrade over Alonso. The bullpen's been a disaster. I think for the Phillies, they're going to get some of that starting pitching figured out. Luzardo, I think, will kind of turn things around. And then eventually you're going to see Harper, Schwarber, Turner really turn it on. And when that happens, I think they can figure it out.
I would say the Mets, actually, because of the pitching. I think the Mets have better pitching overall than what the Phillies do. So I'll go with them as being more likely.
I just don't like that rotation for the Mets.
Really?
Yeah, like... One, they've got Senga that's in that rotation. They're wanting to move on from him. I mean, they were begging people to take him last year. And then you look at it, Freddie Peralta's a nice piece, but is he like a true number one? No.
But I think McLean is.
Yeah, he's a young kid, so it's kind of undetermined with him. So you got a nice 1-2 punch, but outside of that, I don't really like the other arms.
Holmes is good.
Yeah, I know he's really good right now. I'm not buying what he's doing right now with a 1.75 ERA. And then I don't trust David Peterson. They pulled him out, saying, as I mentioned, who's on the IL. Like, I think they're very top-heavy with the rotation.
That's fair. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from Cottleville Comover. Does it make sense to explore an extension with Jordan Walker, or is it still too soon? And what do you think it would look like if they did? Man, that's going to be a fascinating conversation in the offseason if they get to that place and he's still hitting like this. Because it's too soon today, I think. It would not be too soon in the offseason. That's when you could start to see something come together. And, boy, it would be risky because it would be one season of legitimate production, but next year is the start of arbitration for Jordan Walker, and then you have 3 years of control after, like, next year, and then 2028, 2029. That's it. So while I've been saying all along, I don't think you should get into those conversations with a guy like JJ Wetherholt, the same control is not there for Jordan Walker. To get his prime years of age 28, 29, you'd have to do an extension with him. So, yeah, this offseason, it could become a legitimate conversation.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it this offseason. I would wait another full year. I've got to see back-to-back years of him piecing it together because we see players do this in the past that are toolsy that can make it click for 1 year. Tyler O'Neill remind anybody of that? Where O'Neill couldn't really figure it out, and then he had that one awesome year, and we were talking about, boy, do you extend that guy? And then he couldn't stay healthy, and he couldn't figure it out in 2022 is what it was. So much so they said, yeah, you go down to the Arizona Fall League while we're in the playoffs. You go do that. We're going to go have fun here in October. I wouldn't do it just yet because that guy that we saw from the last 2 years is still somewhere there in Jordan Walker, and I got to see him really sustain this production for multiple years.
I have no idea what an extension would even look like. I have no clue. We'd have to look more into it and spend more time on this to see some of the comparables.
That's why I think ARB for him is going to be fascinating too.
Yeah, the first year, like they don't get really paid in a significant way anyway, so he'll get probably a couple $1 million. Year 2 and 3, though, if he continues this,
year 1 can set the precedent for that potentially.
Yeah, but year 1, like none of these guys get paid in year 1. Year 1 of arbitration is typically somewhere between like 2 and 5. And then year 2 is where you really start getting paid potentially. If he's very good this year and next, by year 2, you could see him make like $10 million. And year 3 could be about as much as about 20. So that's why an extension could get really expensive for him. As you could see a situation where if he's good this year and next, and then you go into conversations on an extension, you're looking at the starting point is 2 years, $30 million, and then you're buying out prime years when he's 26. Yeah. And now you're talking about 30 a year for somebody like Jordan Walker and on a long-term contract.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. But if you start that this offseason, you could get a discount on that. And that's why you potentially buy out some of these years early on a guy like Jordan Walker and not on J.J. Wetherholt. I'll say this. I think a Jordan Walker extension this offseason is more likely than a J.J. Wetherholt extension because of where they are at in their respective contracts and what that means for their respective ages.
I think I agree. I would say if you wanted to do a contract extension, I still would rather do Wetherholt over Walker just because I think he's going to be more consistent than Walker.
I think so, but I don't think you're getting the same discount.
I agree.
I don't think there's real value.
I don't think you should do these contract extensions, to be clear. But if you are going to do it, I want to be right on it. And the one that I think I would feel confident, even if it's not as significant a discount, the one I feel like I'm going to be more right on is the J.J. Wetherholt.
What do you mean is less likely to be wrong?
Sure.
Because the likelihood is, even if you're right on the J.J. Wetherholt extension, you didn't really save yourself money.
Fair, yeah.
Whereas with Walker, you could be costing yourself significant money, but you're also much more likely to be right in terms of like it saves you money over the long term. So I don't know. It's about the risk. You're more likely to limit risk. I'm more likely to look for the upside of the contract. So we just kind of view it differently. And I think front offices view that a little bit differently as well. From the 636, does T-Bone plan to change his strategy to get a date after it was made known that St. Louis, according to one report, is second to Baltimore in being the hardest city to date?
Oh,
I don't know where that came from, but apparently St. Louis is the
feels
second
accurate.
hardest city to date in.
No, I don't know how I would change my strategy, to be honest with you. I guess move. I could do that, but it would require getting a job elsewhere before that. But apparently, take note, I'm not going to Baltimore. It's a lot harder, apparently. From
the 314, last question here. What's your favorite brewery in St. Louis for patio drinking? There are a bunch of them. One place that we've been going to a lot lately, it's good for kids outside as well. One that's really good for kids is the Four Hands out in Chesterfield because they've got that huge outdoor space with a ton of turf and like games out there. So that area is really great. But another one is off of 64 Modern Brewery. I think they're doing some of the best stuff in town when it comes to any of the actual breweries, and their food is outstanding. So Modern Brewery is really good. They also have a patio area out there. It's right over by the Science Center. So that would be one. In St. Charles, we like going to Good News Brewery. They've got an outdoor area. They've got a little train out in the back as well, like full-size train out back, which is kind of cool. And then other ones that I really like in town, Heavy Riff is fantastic. It's one of my favorite ones in town. They also have pretty good food. So those would probably be the ones that are right up there. Perennial always does good stuff too. They've got one out in Kirkwood. They've got a nice little outdoor area. So St. Louis is amazing. You throw a rock, you'll find a good brewery to go to.
Yeah, I like the Distillery Square 1 brewery and distillery. That's in Lafayette Square. It's got a nice outdoor area. It's got kind of like I don't even know how you describe it, but it's got like almost like a little waterfall on a wall there too you could look at too, which is nice. Sounds peaceful too, and it's a good spot to go for like if you're gonna go get dinner before the Cardinals game tonight. Stop by there. You could get good dinner and get some nice beer. That's my favorite spot to go.
Four Hands over downtown by the ballpark is also a good one to go to. If you're looking for a place to park and you don't mind walking a little bit, you can go in as you park, you pay for parking, and then you get a drink ticket. So you can take that drink, walk over to the ballpark. That's a nice way to get there as well. So that's another good one over in downtown. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll talk to our guy Jake Neighbours, Blues forward. He's going to join us coming up in about 15 minutes. But next, are the Cardinals catching the Dodgers and the Brewers at the right time right now? I know that sounds kind of crazy given what the Dodgers are. We'll talk about that coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Blues forward Jake Neighbours joins us coming up in about 10 minutes here on BK and Ferrario. Go ahead and check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL as Jake Neighbours joins us in 10 minutes. T-Bone, we talked about this a bit yesterday on the Redbird Report. You can find the newest edition of that also on our YouTube page. Are the Cardinals catching the Dodgers and the Brewers at the right time? Now, there's never a good time to play the Dodgers, because they do have Shohei Ohtani, they have Freddie Freeman, they've got Max Muncy, who's been great so far this year. Andy Pages has become one of the hottest hitters in Major League Baseball. I have not yet mentioned Teoscar Hernandez, who still plays for them, Will Smith, who is awesome, and Kyle Tucker, who hasn't hit his stride, but is also a really good baseball player. In other words, they're the Monstars. So you're going to have to deal with that lineup. There's nothing you can do about that. But if you're going to have to play the Dodgers, to me, you couldn't really get them at a better time than this. And the reason why is because look at their rotation that you're going to see this weekend. You've got Sheehan, Sasaki, and Robleski. Those are the three starters that you will see this weekend. You do not have to go up against either Ohtani or Glasnow. And right now, one of their best starters, maybe their actual best starter, is on the injured list currently in terms of Blake Snell. So these are probably the three starters that if you could write it out, you would want to go up against from the Dodgers. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it's better than what the alternative would be. And then Milwaukee, who comes to town next week, early in the week, you do have Jacob Mizorowski, whatever. I mean, you got to face one good starter at some point. So you got him on Wednesday, but Woodruff left his start yesterday, did not throw a single pitch over 87 miles an hour. He's currently the announced starter for next Tuesday. My guess is he's probably not going to be making that start because he's probably going to head to the injured list. And then you've got something named Brandon Sproat, who's going to be starting for them on Tuesday, who so far this season has a 6.8 ERA in 26 innings for them. T-Bone, again, you don't want to play the Brewers at any point because they've got a pretty good team and they're really well coached. But if you're going to, that's about as good as you could ask for. These next 5 games, you've got, in some of these games, an actual advantage when it comes to the pitching, which isn't something we've often been able to say about the Cardinals so far this season. Does it give you confidence in them heading into the 6-game stretch?
It gives me some confidence because the offense has been the thing that's been carrying the Cardinals. And when you go up against the Dodgers, look, like you said, there's never a good time to run into that Dodgers lineup because of how deep it is, and your rotation's going to struggle against it, but your offense is in its stride right now, and it's going up against the weaker arms in that Dodgers rotation, so that makes me feel pretty confident. I think Sasaki is like a great matchup for the Cardinals, and the reason I say is that guy has no idea where he's throwing the baseball, and this team's willing to show patience at the plate as we've seen this year, so they'll be willing to take their walks, get on base, cause a bunch of havoc when there's traffic aboard, and then like you said with the Brewers, you're running into them at the right time where had they been facing Woodruff healthy, it would have been an interesting series for this offense. But you're not, right? And you just play the schedule that you're handed to you. I feel pretty good about where they're at going into the 6-game stretch. Yes, I get it. The Dodgers are very good with the offense. Your offense, we'll see if it can go toe-to-toe. You know, I didn't think they could be able to go toe-to-toe against the Mariners pitching staff, and you saw some of the best arms from the Mariners, and you held your own against them. So seeing the lesser arms of the Dodgers, I think you're going to be able to hold your own there. And then when it comes to Milwaukee, like you said, you're seeing kind of 2 of their fringe starters, whatever they decide to do in that Woodruff game. So, yeah, I feel confident that they're going to go at least 3-3 in this 6-game stretch.
I feel pretty good about it, all things considered, right? Like, you never feel good going into this stretch against these kinds of teams, but you're going to give yourself a chance because of the offense, and then it just becomes a question of how much do you trust your rotation going up against these lineups. Against Milwaukee, I could buy into it a little bit more because I'm not a huge fan of their lineup. I don't trust them. I don't think they have the star power. Like, going into that series, I know this sounds kind of crazy given what the Cardinals have been. I think the Cardinals have more star power in their lineup than the Brewers do in theirs. Do you agree with that statement, T-Bone?
Oh, boy. Yes, I would say for now, because Churio's still on the IL, right? Churio.
I believe so.
So you've got no Yelich, you've got no Churio in this instance. So, yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, their best bat right now that I would call a quote-unquote star power for them would be William Contreras. And I don't know that he's a star, so I would agree. I think it is. The Cardinals have the...
And Terang's been hitting like a star so far this season. I don't know that I value him that way, but he's been hitting that way so far this season as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it is the Cardinals. I mean, their lineup is, 7, 8 guys above league average, Meanwhile, like looking at the Brewers here, it's got some holes in it, right? Like Joey Ortiz is not hitting, Luis Rengifo is not hitting, Brandon Lockridge, who I've never heard of, is not hitting. So I would say, yeah, I think I agree with your sentiment there. The Cardinals have more star power going into that series.
And you look at the pitching matchups, and it's not terrible for you in that series either, because you've got Woodruff, who's potentially going to be missing, and Sproat, who's a young starter, and we'll see if he's able to find his best stuff. But like, you match up okay there too. The Dodgers lineup just scares the hell out of me. And you've got them going up against Libby and Dustin May, who they know Dustin May as well as anybody in Major League Baseball. We'll see how that matchup ends up going. Michael McGreevy is a guy that I really like. I think he's a good starter. He's been great for you so far this year, but there's going to be a lot of balls that are put into play. They're going to stack that lineup against him with left-handed hitters, and that's been at times a bit of an issue for Michael McGreevy. Is he going to be able to keep them at bay against Sasaki to the point where the lineup is able to do its damage against Sasaki? I don't know, man. So we said this yesterday on the Redbird Report. You mentioned, hey, I think they're going to go about 500 in this stretch. I picked them to go 2-4 in this stretch. If they do more than that, though, this is the point in the season where I bet there are still some fans that are waiting for the other shoe to drop. And you're cautiously optimistic. They're 18-13. You feel good. You're enjoying watching them play right now. But you look at it and you're like, I don't know how sustainable any of this is. I don't trust the pitching. If they're able to continue this against the Dodgers lineup, and then they do it against the Brewers as well, and you see them go up against the team that's supposed to be the best in the division, and they're able to take advantage of it, they win like 4 of their next 6, that's when I think you start to see Cardinals fans almost unanimously jump on board. And that's where things start to get pretty interesting for them.
Yeah, I think it's this 6-game. If you want to go a little bit further, I'd say even this 10-game stretch where you go to San Diego after this homestand, because San Diego's one of the best teams. They're right there with the LA Dodgers so far this year. So in this 10-game stretch, they go like 6-4. It'd be hard to see Cardinals fans not buy into it, because then, I mean, the schedule starts to soften up a bit to where it goes at the Athletics, who are a fine baseball team. They're not anything to write home about. You get the Royals, as we've seen this year, are not very good. The Pirates, who just took care of business, followed by the Reds, Brewers, and Cubs. Like, you would be feeling really good as you get into a huge stretch towards the end of May. That will probably determine who kind of separates themselves from the rest of the NL Central. You probably have the chance to separate yourself and be considered a playoff team, or fall back down to the pack.
Well, final question on this before we get to Jake Neighbours on the other side. Which series do you think is more meaningful for the Cardinals? The Dodgers or the Brewers?
I think it's the Brewers series, because I don't think, even if you take 2 or 3 from the Dodgers, we saw this last year. They won a season series against the Dodgers. They went 4-2 against that great World Series team. You're not going to be able to compete with that team when we get to the playoffs, if you get to the playoffs. The Brewers have been the class of the division for the last, 5 years? I think it's that Brewers series. I think they're the one that they're still viewed as the top dog in this division, even though they're not there right now. I think if you can take 2 or 3 from them, it feels almost like sending a message as, hey, we are back and we are ready to start pushing everybody else in this division.
That's where I view it as well. The Dodgers series, I think you could look at it and like, if you're a Cardinals fan and you're pessimistic about this team, you could be like, yeah, they missed all their best starters. So, yeah, of course they were going to have some success
the Dodgers
offensively.
Don't really care about the regular season.
And the Cardinals last year had success against the Dodgers. And then you saw them go up against a couple other teams. And I remember Ollie talking about this, where he's like, I felt like we matched up pretty well against the Dodgers. It was the next series that they were a little more worried about. And ultimately the Blue Jays were able to kind of,
And as we saw,
remind
the Blue Jays
them of who they
nearly
were.
won the World Series.
And the Brewers and the Padres could do something similar over the next 7 games after this Dodgers series, even if they're able to take advantage of some of the pitching that the Dodgers have to offer. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in 15 minutes, there was some interesting news yesterday in college basketball. Are we going to see that implemented in college football sooner rather than later? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. Jake Neighbours, the Blues forward, joins us next here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley, patiently awaiting Jake Neighbours, who is expected to be joining us momentarily here on 101 ESPN. Interested to hear his thoughts on what he's seen in the postseason and how he will try to follow some of what he's seen for next year's regular season. Also, just looking back on the Blues season, how he would categorize his year, what he thinks led to his drop in production, and then just overall, obviously, one of the big conversations about the St. Louis Blues this offseason is the captaincy, and whether that's a goal for Jake Neighbours in his career and what he views as the value of a captain in the NHL nowadays. So we'll talk about all of that with Jake Neighbours momentarily here on 101 ESPN. You can always check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. And we've got the text line, 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line as well. It sounds like we do have Jake Neighbours on the line. The Blues forward joining us here on 101 ESPN joins us via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Jake, thanks so much for joining us in what I'm sure is a nice break for you right now. How you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely. We're thrilled to have you. So let's start out just kind of big picture. You look back at the 2026 campaign for yourself and for the Blues. How do you look back at what was a really weird season for the Blues this year?
Yeah, just kind of a little bit of disappointment, obviously, with the season we had previously. And, just got out to a poor start and faced a lot of adversity and just didn't really deal with it as best as we probably could have, and put ourselves in a tough spot, but figured out a way to make it interesting in the end, and really like the way our team turned it around after the break, and seemed to find an identity and find ourselves again. So now it's just about trying to find that earlier in the season.
Jake, for you, what do you think changed for the team in, I wouldn't even call it the second half, but just overall post-Olympics? What do you think changed for the Blues?
I think a commitment to playing the right way, obviously. You noticed our defensive metrics after the break were first in the league by a long shot, and it wasn't really close. And, when you have a commitment to playing that side of the puck and, defending really hard, it obviously sets yourself up better for winning hockey games. And I really do think it helps offense as well when, you're consistently over top of people, on top of pucks. You create turnovers and you create transition, and that's where I think we're really good and dangerous. So, I think that was one of the biggest differences, and just felt like there was a freedom in the room. There wasn't any pressure with the start we had, and, found a way to, go on a bit of a run.
How did things kind of shift in the room there, Jake, post-trade deadline, after you guys end up moving on from two important leaders in Braden Shen, your captain, and then Justin Falk? How did you guys feel that shift in the room go?
Yeah, I think it was more about how do we fill, the holes collectively as a team, and we had a lot of different guys step up, and whether that meant with their play in practice, their play on the ice, or with their voice, or with their habits. There was a number of guys that, took the opportunity of two veterans and two important pieces to our team, and obviously two leaders exiting. And, I think guys tried to make the most of it with that opportunity. And, like I said, there was a lot of different guys that stepped up and tried to bring leadership and try and fill the holes that those guys left.
Jake, I know a lot has been made about the impact that Braden Shen has had on you, both on and off of the ice, and obviously he was viewed as a heck of a leader for the St. Louis Blues over the years. I'm curious, now that you are a few years into your NHL career and you've seen how he's gone about it, for us on the outside looking in, we can't see some of the things that a captain brings to the table, but what do you view as the value of a captain in the NHL?
Yeah, I think, the value is, you kind of have someone at the tip of the spear that, is obviously has to be the right person, and someone that consistently brings the correct mindset every single day, doesn't waver in their emotions or anything like that. And I just think it really gives the team someone to not rally around, but, just feel like we have someone that's leading us. And, I thought Shenner did such an amazing job of that, the way he took care of people, was consistent with his daily routine at the rink, whether it was practice day, off day, game day. He always had hockey at the forefront of his mind and, made decisions accordingly. And I think that's something that is very important for a leader, and it sets an example and a standard for everyone around him to make similar decisions and bring the same consistency. So I think when you have someone, with the C on their chest that leads by example, holds guys accountable, and like I said, is kind of that tip of the spear, it really rallies guys behind him.
Do you have any examples of that, Jake, just to bring some of our listeners kind of behind the curtain and what that might look like, whether it's, taking guys out to dinner or having conversations behind the scenes? Like, what does that look like for a captain in the room?
Yeah, I think it's, everyone does it in different ways. For Shenner, he just, like you said, booking dinners for guys that, he's not even going to the dinner and he'll get it booked for you. Or, I remember specifically he booked a golf trip for me and a couple of young guys a few years ago in the off season that, I just asked him for a recommendation somewhere to go, and he responded with, here's a trip, like, booked for you kind of thing. So just things like that. Like, he always took such good care of the people around him and was a really selfless person, and, also had that side to him where, he held guys accountable in the room. And but that's just what made you respect him so much.
Jake, is becoming a future captain in the NHL something that you aspire to be?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I've always dreamed of. I was always someone who wore a letter in my minor hockey teams and junior, all that stuff, and just something I take pride in is being a leader, being a good teammate, and, setting the tone for my teammates and everyone around me. So, that's something I take pride in. If that ever happens, I don't know. I won't be disappointed if it doesn't, but that's definitely something that, I've dreamed about is, wearing a letter.
Blues forward Jake Neighbours joining us here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate his time. Jake, I'm curious, just kind of looking at your game, how it's evolved over the years. What would you say is the biggest change, like in a good way, from when you first got to the NHL to where your game is at today? What has been the biggest evolution for you, in your opinion?
Yeah, I would say just kind of my all-around aspects. I think when I first came to the league, I was, someone who played a flank in junior and handled the puck a lot, got lots of points, and was kind of the, I guess the star on every team I played for. And you come to the NHL and you have to learn how to adapt. And I think that's something I'm most proud of, is how I've adapted myself into, maybe something different than I was in past years of my life. And still need improvement and still need to continue to adapt. I think, this year was kind of not a step backwards, but it wasn't a step forwards. And, that's something I got to look in the mirror about and find things to get better at and improve my game. So, but I just think like the net front stuff, my defensive awareness, my leadership, all those things have come such a long way since I came into the league as a 19, 20-year-old. So, I'm still got a ways to go, but proud of the progress I made. And, it's going to be a big summer for me.
For every player, they go into the offseason and they say, man, I'm just trying to work on everything, right? They're trying to get better all around in terms of your game. For you, have you gotten to that place yet of kind of looking at, all right, here are the specific things that I'm trying to improve upon for next year? Or is that something you look more into as you get further into the offseason?
No, that's definitely something you try and hone in on right after the season ends. And you do your exit meetings, you get your feedback from obviously Monty and Diener, and get feedback from your teammates and people around you, and you kind of just hone in and create a plan of attack for what you need to improve. And there's a lot of different ways of going about that, and everybody's got different methods. But ideally, I've already started to think about things that I can improve upon and how I want to do it. And I've already been on the ice in the gym, and I'm really eager to improve those things. So just excited. Like I said, it's a big summer and excited to get after it.
Are you able to share some of those things, Jake? Kind of what are the biggest things that you're trying to develop this offseason?
Yeah, I think just skating still, trying to get a little more explosive and stronger on my edges, on my feet. And I think defensive awareness is still something that I really want to improve upon. I want to be a guy that's relied upon in, last minute of the game and key situations to go out and do a job. And, That's something that you can study and learn over the off season. And then I think just conditioning as well, just trying to find another gear and getting in better shape and, putting myself in a better position to, have the win to outlast other guys on other teams. I think that's, obviously a physical edge you can have on people is being in really good shape. And, some of the best players in the world are obviously in the best shape. And that's why they play 20, 25 minutes a night. So I think putting myself in a spot where, I got the legs and I got the lungs to be able to play some more minutes.
Jake, you mentioned Steiner was in your exit interview there with Jim Montgomery. I'm curious, from the outside, there's been a lot of talk about that transition from Doug Armstrong to Alexander Steen. Has that been something you have noticed as a player? Or has that just kind of been business as usual from a player's perspective and in that locker room?
Yeah, no, it's just been business as usual. It's, nothing really changes for us as players, obviously. Some of us have a relationship with Steiner, some of us don't. And, that's something that'll be built over time. And, but he's come in, he's had meetings with us and spoken with us about his expectations, what he wants with this team and this organization. And, I think everybody's kind of on the same page with it. So, it's obviously, just got started the last little bit of the season there. And now we're in the off season and, we'll continue to move forward once we get back.
All right, Jake, that's enough hockey. Let's get into the offseason. What's the outlook for you, man? Do you have anything planned? Are you taking any trips? What's the offseason look like for Jake Neighbours?
Nothing too crazy. I'm going to a couple weddings I got to go to and stuff like that. Heading back to Calgary for the summer, spend time with some friends and family. And, I think we're going to do a trip to Hawaii here in a little bit to go enjoy some sun and a little bit of a beach. So, but yeah, other than that, it's going to be pretty relaxed for me. A lot of work in the gym, a lot of skating, and come back ready for next year.
Do you and Holloway get together at all over the summer? I don't know if he's going back up to Calgary or not, but are you guys together up there while you're training?
Yeah, like we hang out quite a bit, play golf together. We work out at different gyms, but skate together sometimes. So I do see quite a bit of them, obviously being in the same city and stuff. So, we usually get together for a couple dinners throughout the summer. Obviously, like I said, skate together and stuff. So, yeah, we're pretty close buddies and like to hang out.
Hey, Jake, we appreciate the time, man. I know it's your off season, so you don't have to do this. We sincerely appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time to talk to the fans here in St. Louis. We wish you nothing but the best in the off season. We'll talk with you again soon, man.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy the summer.
You got it. That's Jake Neighbours, Blues forward, joining us here on 101 ESPN, your home of the St. Louis Blues. By the way, the Thunderbirds back in action this evening in round 2 of the AHL playoffs. Otto Stenberg in action, also Theo Lindstein, two guys that had a significant impact on the St. Louis Blues this year. They will be on the ice tonight as the Thunderbird take on the Bruins. Pregame for that one, puck drop for that one, at 6 o'clock right here on 101 ESPN. I thought it was interesting, man. He said he wants to be a captain. That is something that he's always placed value upon. It is a goal of his. He aspires to be that, but he added in a little disclaimer there at the end. It's not something he's going to be disappointed about if he doesn't get it this offseason. I think that's important because we've seen at times in the past that is something that's rubbed some guys the wrong way. Vladdy was behind the scenes not thrilled about the fact that he didn't get the captaincy. There's been some talk about, hey, what is that a thing with Robert Thomas potentially this offseason where if he doesn't get it, he'd be frustrated if it was handed to somebody else. We've not heard that directly, but it's something that, is openly questioned. So him saying that, I think, is noteworthy whenever he answered that question from you, T-Bone.
Yeah, I found that noteworthy as well because, like you said, there are guys in the past that have found that to be kind of an issue with the team to where it almost kind of leads down a path of kind of where you got two sides not pulling in the same direction. I mean, you mentioned Vladdy as that was one of the many things that eventually led to the breakup here in St. Louis. And he just sounds like a future captain, right? And that's why I wanted to ask that question because when you talk with him, he reminds me of Shen, who you asked him about, and the value that he had as a captain. That's who he reminds me of, and he kind of plays a similar style as him. And he's a guy that would be able to pull people into the fight, both off the ice and then with his actions on the ice.
I do appreciate, like, some guys are able to do this and other guys don't or can't. And it's not a thing to demean anybody else, but I always appreciate when guys are able or willing to do this. But he shares examples of stuff where like he's talking about, hey, how do you improve your game? What is the thing that you're going to do in order to get better? And he's like, here is number 1, number 2, and number 3. And you go back to the JR article on Jake Neighbours where he's got this list of things that he wants to do, and each goal will get him at the end to the NHL. And that started at such a young age for him that I think that's the kind of stuff that it's impossible to quantify, right? But when guys have that it factor, it changes things and it allows them to be whatever the best version of them is going to be. So it was a down year for Jake Neighbours, finished with only 15 goals. I think you're going to see him get right back to what he was over the last couple of years. I would anticipate he's going to be a 20 to 25 goal scorer with consistency at the NHL level. And we were looking this up before the interview because I was just curious. We were thinking about what we wanted to ask him. And we both had one of the same questions in mind of like, Dvorsky, asking a question about Dvorsky. And then you go in and you look at the line that he played on all season long. He played almost the entirety of the year with Pavel Buchnevich as his centerman. He very rarely got time on the ice with Dalibor Dvorsky. So that is another thing to keep in mind when you look at, all right, what went wrong for Jake Neighbours this season? He would never say this because he's too much of a professional. But I wonder if some of that is just like, hey, man, I played with a guy that's not a center as my center for 200 minutes at 5-on-5 this year. That's going to impact what my overall production is.
Yeah, and I think a player of Jake Neighbours' caliber, and I don't mean this as a shot towards him, but he is not as much as a offensive creator like a Jordan Kyrou is that uses speed. He is I'm going to the net front, I'm going to go do the dirty work, and I'm going to score those tough goals inside that blue paint. A lot of guys like that of Jake Neighbours' profile, they need a centerman to help them drive that offense and then a winger as well with them. So I'm with you. I wouldn't be shocked that if you were to upgrade at that second line center or you played him even with Dvorsky more on that third line potentially, that you would see his numbers get back more into the range that we were expecting from him this season.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you missed any of our conversation with the one, the only Jake Neighbours, you can check that out on the podcast page after the show today at 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app. Those podcasts are all sponsored by Schaefer Door Company. You can always check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. Coming up next, the Big Ten has become, in my opinion, the best conference in America, and that's both in basketball and football. One SEC coach has a thought on why that has taken place on the football side of things. We'll let you hear that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals took down the Pirates yesterday 10-5 as they complete the 4-game sweep in Pittsburgh, and they return home tonight where they'll start a 3-game set with the LA Dodgers. Emmett Sheehan will be on the mound for LA. Matthew Liberatore will get the start for the Cardinals. 7:15 will be first pitch tonight. And if you just missed our conversation with St. Louis Blues forward Jake Neighbours, be sure to check it out on the podcast page later today after the show. And you can hear Springfield Thunderbirds playoff hockey in the Calder Cup tonight. 6:05 will have puck drop for Game 1 in their series as they visit Providence Bruins. The Sports Update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Really good conversation with Jake Neighbours. If you missed any of it, check it out on the podcast page after the show today. It was, in my opinion, well worth your time. So go ahead and check that out on the podcast page from the 314. Guys, are you going to talk about Sheik Pearson, who just committed to SLU? Big news for SLU, as one of the better transfers that was still available has officially announced that he is coming home to play for the SLU Billikens. Sheik Pearson has announced his transfer to the Billikens. He's a 6'11", 205-pound forward. He was at Marquette last year. It's a really good get for SLU. This is the kind of player that this is what you should be seeking in the transfer portal. He was a top 150 recruit at the time that he came out of high school. For whatever reason, it didn't get a whole lot of play this year at Marquette. And now you see what that talent can look like for you at SLU. So, yeah, it's a great get for them.
Yeah, I love this. And we saw Shirts have success with this last year in the portal, where he'd go out and get guys from Power 5 programs that either didn't play a lot or got some minutes, and he was able to really implement them into his rotation to what he wanted to do. So this is an interesting pickup for them to go out there and get one of the best guys that's still available in the portal, and do a good job, by the way, of trying, he's not going to win a lot of top recruits that come out of the St. Louis area, but if they enter back in the portal, we've seen this with Drinkwitz as well at times at Missouri in football. All right, well, we couldn't recruit you then. Didn't work out at your previous spot. Why don't you come home here for a little bit, and we'll see if we can develop you in our system. So I love what we're seeing Josh Shirts do so far this offseason. He seems to be doing a good job of reloading on what was already a pretty good return that he got from this year's team.
And this is a kid who reclassified last year. So he was a young freshman, took a redshirt year at Marquette, and now you're going to be able to see him at the age that he would typically be a freshman in college. I also wonder, it's possible he's one of the first guys to get the 5-5 rule. So you might still have four more years of legit eligibility for Pearson. This is the kind of kid that if you're a SLU fan, you want to keep home. A top 150 recruit, not a guy that's going to be like a one-and-done type, but goes elsewhere for a year, transfers back home. The hope would be now in the future, you can just keep him home starting in year one, but this would effectively have been his freshman year anyways. It's a really nice get for SLU, and he's also got the size that they were looking for in the portal. So nice get for them. There's my thoughts on him.
6'11", 200. That must be nice.
Yeah, he's got, and it's like an above 7-foot wingspan. A ridiculous inside presence. Sounds like, according to all the profiles, really good shot blocker on the interior as well. So, yeah, it adds a different element to their lineup compared to what they had previously, where a lot of the time at the 4, you'd see Robbie in that spot. This is a very different player than Robbie Avila in the way that he profiles at the next level.
It'll be interesting to see how the next version of Josh Shirts' offense looks, right? I mean, we talked about this in the past. Robbie Avila was the guy that was the offense, the driving force of it, whether that was from the scoring or from his distributing his abilities there. So it's interesting to see. I wonder if this is the first sign of, okay, we're going to go more with a bigger, true big man that helps protect the interior and try and score from the outside.
All right, on the college football side of things, thought it was interesting. Yesterday I was listening to this interview that Kirby Smart did, and I typically don't think Kirby says a whole lot. I thought this was a pretty good, candid interview. It looks like it was something that he was doing at some kind of a golf tournament or something.
'Tis the season.
Yep, no doubt. And he was asked about the Big Ten versus the SEC, especially coming off of the NFL draft and seeing the talent and the disparity, but really overall just kind of how it's flattened out across the country. Go ahead and take a listen to Kirby Smart's answer when asked why it feels as though the Big Ten has overtaken the SEC as the best conference in America.
I can't figure out what it is. I just think they have a more competitive conference, like the top of their conference. There's more good teams. It used to be Ohio State was good.
Yeah.
You know, like Michigan was really good. When Harbaugh had a great team, Indiana's good. Like now they got Oregon. They got a draw. They have an ability to attract good players. Now NIL has a factor too, for sure. But so does Miami. I mean, so does Florida. I mean, people have money. More people have money.
That's right.
So I think the talent is spread out thin. Where before in the SEC, it was a magnet to talent. The disparity was so great that it was like you couldn't mess it up. You'd win regardless. And now it's like, okay, it's more even, and it's just been 3 in a row.
But it's crazy. Like when you were over here as a defensive coordinator, you would not have taken the Indiana job under any circumstances.
No, probably not.
There is no way they would have pried you away from Tuscaloosa. You were waiting for a better job than that.
I agree with that.
And now it's a national championship program, so it just shows you how quickly things can change in this landscape.
That's true. It can change quick, but that doesn't explain why the Big.
No, I agree with you.
That doesn't explain why the Big Ten's been able to do that, and that's just, I have so much respect for them. I'm like, are they better coaches than us? Are they? And that's what all our coaches say. They're like,
I think Joel Klatt says that. Yeah, I mean, people have said that. I don't think that's the case
because I don't think they're taking less talent in theory and doing more with it.
Do you think he has a point there? Is it possible that right now the Big Ten just has better coaching than the SEC, and that's why we have seen that conference elevate itself above where the SEC is currently?
I have a tough time on that because, I think when we talk about that, I mean, we are talking about truly just 3 head coaches. I think it's just like the same conversation as it is with SEC versus the Big Ten. I think the top 3 coaches, maybe in the Big Ten, are arguably potentially better than the top 3 in the SEC. But after that, I think there's a huge drop-off when you're looking at the coaching in the SEC or in the Big Ten compared to the SEC. I just think the middle of the SEC, I think you've got really good coaches in Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, at Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Meanwhile, at the Big Ten, I go, all right, well, once you get past the top 3 of Dan Lanning, Kurt Cignetti, Ryan Day, and then you could put Michigan's coach in there. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Came from Utah. But I don't know if we can really put him in that. Whittingham, thank you. I don't know if we can put him in that category yet because he's got to prove it at Michigan before we can actually put him there. After you get past those first 3 in the Big Ten, the next group of that is probably arguably potentially
Lincoln
Riley. I would put Brett Bielema in that conversation. Jed Fish at Washington, Iowa's head coach. But I don't think those guys are better than the middle of the pack in the SEC. I think Drinkwitz is potentially a better head coach than those guys. I think Clark Lee, look at what he's done with Vandy, which was a nobody program, and he took them to a team that was on the fringe of being a playoff team this year. So I hear it at the top. I don't think overall, when you compare the conferences, I don't think it holds up, though.
I think Cignetti is that good. I think that's what's changed. If it was just Ohio State doing this, I think we would not view it really all that differently than it had been in the past. But you had Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. That was when you had Jim Harbaugh and Ohio State do it. It doesn't matter who Ohio State's head coach is, Ryan Day or whoever else. That school's a factory. Dan Lanning at Oregon, I think, is a really, really good, a legit top 5 coach in college football. So Harbaugh, Lanning, Ohio State plus Cignetti, that's about as good as you're going to get in college football. But then you just replaced Harbaugh with Cignetti, and here we are. I think that's what's changed. You don't have Nick Saban in the SEC, and now you do have Cignetti in the Big Ten. You just flipped those. I think Cignetti right now, for me, I understand if somebody says, no, it's too early to say that, BK, cool. It's Indiana. You just heard Kirby Smart say, I never would have taken that job. Never would have been able to get me to take that job after being the DC at Alabama. Not interested. Kurt Cignetti took the job and then became a national title contender within a year and then won the championship the next season. It's crazy. That's an insane thing to be able to do, and he just did that. I would have him as my number 1 coach in college football that I would want to build a program around currently. And I think that's what's changed. Do they have better coaching? Well, sure, because typically the way that we do this is we judge conferences by the top. We don't judge them by the middle of the pack. I mean, 2 years ago, I thought, or 3 years ago, I guess it would have been, the Big Ten was deeper, but the SEC was better at the top, and the SEC was viewed as the better conference. This past season, it was reversed. I thought the SEC was a deeper conference than the Big Ten, but the Big Ten had arguably the 3 best teams in the country. And so that's how we viewed them as being the best conference. So, yeah, I think Kurt Cignetti is what's changed. That guy's ability to take worse talent and beat you, He is the classic example of, I'll beat you with mine, and then I'll beat you with yours. I don't care which kids I've got, I'm going to beat you. That's Curt Cignetti right now.
Yeah, and see, I have a tough time putting Cignetti as the number one coach to start a program with because I got to see it longer. I really do. And I get it. Look, what he did at Indiana was improbable. And I agree with what Kirby said. If you would have asked Kirby about taking that job, it's smart probably to decline to take it. But I think the way that everything just kind of played out for him, it was almost the perfect storm. Having guys that were much older that he was able to bring in, coach them up, had met multiple stops. NIL era, by the way, also plays a factor into this. If we're not even talking about NIL, you're not even talking about Indiana. But I think the best coaches are able to sustain success for a very long period of time, like what Kirby has done, where he's won national championships and he still gets that program to the national, or gets them to the college football playoff. What Ryan Day has done, where he's constantly getting Ohio State to the playoff. And then, like you saw this year, look at the talent he had on that roster. It's almost disappointing. It's actually incredible he didn't get that team to a national championship. Same with how Harbaugh would constantly do that. I just think you have to see Cignetti keep doing it before we can start to put him in that conversation.
If you were ranking right now your top 5 coaches in the SEC and the Big Ten combined, so you're looking at those two conferences and you can pick from the entire pool of coaches that are available to you, and you were ranking your top 5, what would that list look like for you?
I think Ryan Day would be in the top 5. I'm not going in any particular order right now. I'm just getting my top 5 first. I would go Ryan Day, Dan Lanning would be in that conversation. You would have to put Kirby in it for sure. I think Sark belongs in it, but that one I'm a little bit like he's going to be fringe in that top 5.
Okay.
And then you have to probably put Cignetti in it. But I don't know that I would put him at 1 just because I think he's got to constantly do it, just like Ryan Day has done it. But I think it's probably 3-2 in favor of the Big Ten.
I would probably go Cignetti 1. I think I would go Kirby 2 because of that longevity that we've seen from him. I think he's special. I would go Dan Lanning 3. I think I would probably go with Ryan Day at 4. And then 5 is where it gets a little tougher. I would people are going to think this is controversial. I would probably go with Lane Kiffin there.
I thought about putting him in there, and that's why I hesitated on Sark, because Sark's been able to be very good at Texas, but he hasn't seemed to be able to take that program yet to the next level. Lane Kiffin got Ole Miss to the college football playoff. Now then he left, but he got that program, which is kind of like the Indiana, where it was, hey, yeah, you can't really do this at Ole Miss, and Lane was able to do it. So I think that's fair to put him in the top 5.
I think it's a clear-cut top 4, and then there's a tier gap after them, because I think it's Cignetti, Kirby, Lanning, and Ryan Day, and then you can have your conversation of who you want to put at 5, but I think the conversation is really like top 4. It's almost like an NCAA tournament where you've got your top 4 seeds that are 1 seeds, and then the second group would be the 2 seeds, where that's where you get into like Lane Kiffin. I think Elko, for me, would be put into that conversation. Sark could be in that conversation, and then you continue from there. But those to me, and honestly, I think we probably should put, depending on your perspective of him, I don't know. There's a lot of people that really dislike him, but USC's head coach, why am I blanking on the name right now? But Lincoln Riley, I think he would probably be in that conversation with Lane as well. I think he's been
a huge disappointment at USC. I know he was good early.
What's the difference really between Lane and Lincoln Riley?
Hasn't Lane, they've been to the same amount of playoffs, right? Because Lincoln got there once with USC.
And he did it more at Oklahoma than he did with USC.
I would say the difference for me is that I think that doing that at Ole Miss is harder than doing it at USC. USC was supposed to be this powerhouse of a football program. Like, think back to when Pete Carroll was running that. I thought the moment he left Oklahoma and took over that program, I thought, all right, here you go. We're finally going to see USC in the heyday, as I would hear about when you guys would tell me about those USC-Texas games. Yeah. I thought we were going to see that, and he hasn't been able to do it. So that's why I would say I would take Kiffin ahead of him. I think what he did at Ole Miss is more impressive than what we've seen from Lincoln Riley so far at USC.
Maybe. I don't know, man. But Lincoln Riley, you look back at what he did at Oklahoma, I think it's relatively similar to what we've seen from Lane Kiffin.
I'll also add this. You'll probably disagree with this. He kind of reminds me of, he's almost in the Dabo run. And what I mean by that is,
interesting.
And it's not from where Dabo's clearly lost touch with the game. Dabo's not in the NIL space. He's not going to the portal. Like, he's clearly just lost touch. But it's the quarterbacks. Think of the quarterback whisper Lincoln Riley was. I mean, he went from Baker Mayfield to Kyler Murray or Jalen Hurts to Kyler Murray, somewhere in that order. But he had like 3 straight Heisman winners and 3 straight guys that were became number 1 quarterbacks in the NFL. And after his last one, he hasn't really found that answer again.
I think his new one's pretty good.
He's good, but he hasn't. Again, he didn't win anything. I mean, right now,
Not yet. That was his first year as a starter there.
Yeah.
We'll see what he does this year. I think this year is an interesting year at USC. They've got to be able to cap this off with a legitimate season from the start. I think he's a really good player. I think he could be like a top 50 pick next year in the NFL draft. By the way, look at some of the way too early mock drafts. Next year's draft looks really good. It looks amazing.
Oh, good. I didn't want to go through another year like this year.
Drew Mestemaker, quarterback out of North Texas, has transferred over to Oklahoma State. He's in it. You've got Arch Manning, who's going to be a big storyline heading into the season. Lenore Sellers, once again, is going to get a lot of buzz heading into the season as a potential top 10 pick in the NFL draft as well. And that's just at the quarterback position. Next year is going to be a lot different than the draft that we just saw. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll talk to our guy Brad Thompson here on 101 ESPN. Next, Junk Drawer really quickly here on 101 ESPN. All right, T-Bone, you know I have a fear of flying. I get up in the air, and I immediately assume we're going to hit another plane.
Yeah.
It's the only way this ends. This is it. This is the end for me. I'm getting up in the air, and now we're going to collide. I'm going to explode. Boom. Game over.
Every time you tell this story, I feel depressed for you.
Yeah, I know. It's not great. Breaking news is from a couple of days ago. United Airlines flight 3,000 feet in the air collides with a red shiny drone in airspace. This is happening far too often.
What?
I saw one plane the other day just narrowly was able to avoid another plane in the air.
That one.
This one, they collided with a red shiny drone that was in the airspace. I don't need any of this. This is supposed to be an irrational fear. This is not supposed to be a fear that is actually being realized while these planes are in the air. And I feel like I see a new news story about this, like at least once a week. I'm not loving it. I'm taking my next flight in about 3 weeks, going out to Denver, hanging out there with my grandma. I don't need this. I would just like to ask for any of you airlines out there for the next 3 weeks, please don't allow me to see any of these news stories. That's all I'm asking. My algorithm is going to show me them because I'm going to click on it. So please, for the next 3 weeks, can you all get your stuff together so I don't have to read about this prior to me getting on the airline again?
Sounds like you just got to fix your algorithm so you never see it again. You know, that's what it sounds like. It's got to have.
Somebody on the text line, Mahomes Longbody says, maybe you should just try some gummies on the plane. I don't know if that's going to work because then I might have an even bigger anxiety attack. That could go either direction.
Yeah, you know, that's actually probably not worth experimenting with because now I can picture you from going in your head going, oh boy, we're going to die, to you screaming while your seatbelt there going, we're all going to die.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
I don't need that in my life.
Maybe have a beer before you get on the plane. Go to one of those bars at the airport.
Coming up next, Brad Thompson. He's been on a plane. He came back home from Pittsburgh yesterday. We'll ask him about what he learned about the Cardinals in that series, what he expects to learn about them against the Dodgers when he joins us next here on 101 ESPN. The Cardinals return home after winning 4 straight in Pittsburgh. They return home to take on the Dodgers, and if ever there was a good time to face them, I suppose this is it. You've avoid their best starters. You've got Sheehan, Sasaki, and Robleski on the mound this weekend. Brad Thompson joins us now. He is on the call for Cardinals TV. Joins us weekly here on BK and Ferrario. BT, what's good, man? How you doing today?
Man, everything is good right now. The Birds are rolling. What an entertaining series that was in Pittsburgh, man. All of the games, even the one they ended up winning by 4, had some drama to it. But the boys are rolling. They're figuring out different ways to win. And as you mentioned, look, going to be a tough challenge. You do dodge a couple of bullets in that rotation, but we know how tough the Dodgers are. Going to be a great weekend.
BT, I'm going to ask you a question that we opened up the show with today. And I don't know what the answer is here. I don't know that there's a right answer. Jordan Walker and J.J. Wetherholt are the first time that you feel like you've had legitimate star potential with 2 young players that are homegrown in a Cardinals uniform since blank.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know the answer to this either. Like, we were talking about this internally just as a group the other day of who are the position players that we've been excited about in the past. And Matt Carpenter came to mind, Colton Wong initially. But, man,
Carlson was that for a year.
Yes. Yeah, he was.
Different.
But I don't know if it had the same like hype and feel to it at the very least. And it's not like Carp was a crazy high pick either. He actually had to prove it at the big league level, and then there started to be some hype around him. I mean, honestly, it's probably as far back as sad of a story as it is with like Oscar Taveras. It was like the last time there was like real hype around it. It's been forever, and there's a reason that the Cardinals started drafting high upside position players because they didn't have it. Like, they didn't have it within the organization. So I don't have a good comp. I just know this. It's exciting. It's exciting to watch and see what the future might look like for this organization, and those guys probably standing smack dab in the middle of it.
And BT, it is exciting, and I got to say, if I were Chaim Bloom, I would be pushing already. Like, that's how excited I already am. Do you think that we're seeing with this offense, and if these guys are going to sustain this year, this accelerates the timeline of this rebuild for the Cardinals?
Pushing to you.
Say that again, BT. We lost you there for a second.
Tunnel.
Oh, I said, what is pushing for you? What does that mean to you?
I would say, like, potentially, like, when we get to this offseason, if we see this offense continue, that maybe they would splurge on a starter.
BT, he's ready to add relievers right now.
BT,
he's frustrated with the bullpen. He's already ready to go, BT. He can't do this rebuild thing.
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think it speeds you up a ton. This rebuild, if you're whatever they're terming it, like a lot of it, yes, what is here right now is a big part of it. We just talked about the nucleus of what it's going to look like with J.J. Wetherholt and with Walker and with Mason Wynn and Gorman, like whoever, like this group is a big part of it. But a lot of it is still your guys that you have in the minor leagues that you're continuing to develop. That's where a lot of your starting pitching depth is coming from. I don't see them being in the near future in the market for making a large splash when it comes to the pitching standpoint. There is going to be a need to bolster a bullpen for sure, and that need could even come this year of being able to find at least another steadying presence out there. But I would say right now it's too early to say that their timeline has shifted. They are a patient bunch, Chaim Bloom and his group, and they told you that by doing what they're doing this year. I don't think that they're going to be jump started into changing what they think that future looks like just by a good first month.
We're talking to Brad Thompson here on 101 ESPN. BT, what did you see yesterday from Hunter Dobbins? What stood out to you?
Man, so early, as you guys were watching, stuff was electric. He was running this fastball up there, 96, I think topped at 97. Good sinking action. Also ran the four seam at the top. I thought his split was good, and then had feel he could throw his curveball and sweeper for strikes to start out with. And then when he had to go to the stretch, he kind of lost it, and he ended up walking 3 straight. And you notice in that inning, he ended up actually going back to the windup with bases loaded, got his timing back, got out of the inning. Ultimately, next inning, he walked a pair. So a bit of a mixed bag for Dobbins, but but I'd say incredibly promising for what he's got. You know, he's got the stuff in the tank. You know, he's got some swing and miss. He will have to make some adjustments a little bit quicker. But that was his first big league start since July of last year when he tore his ACL covering first base. I thought you saw a lot of good things. So it wasn't shocking. You kind of knew that he was going to be a one and done in the rotation this time around. But I really think, and I talked to Ollie off camera after the game yesterday, and he liked it. He liked what he saw. He liked the swing and miss ability, the pitch ability. So I really do think that this is going to be a guy that is going to be in the thick of things.
BT, I did want to ask you, as we were just talking about Wetherholt a second ago, as a former pitcher, how would you attack him right now? Because he's patient at the plate, and then when he forces you into the zone, as we saw yesterday against Paul Skeens, he's ready to time up a fastball, and he's got, I think, better power than I expected. So I'm curious, how would you attack J.J. Wetherholt right now if you were Major League Baseball?
Yeah, well, right now it's very evident his plan is to attack any fastball in the zone, and that's exactly what he's doing. So guys will tinker with him, and you end up falling behind, to your point, and it's change-up away, splitter away, 1-0, 2-0, and then you have to come into the zone with a competitive heater, and he's ready to put his best swing on it. So, look, I would make him continue to beat me to the other side of the field. Now, what's promising about that from JJ's standpoint and from the Cardinals standpoint, he showed you in this last series, and he showed you in spring training, his ability to go that way with authority. He had a double to left center field. He had a double to down the line to left, like both hit very hard. But that's the way I would attack him. I would attack him down and away specifically, make him go down there and get it, and then I would run stuff in off the plate to be able to keep him honest. But, like, guys are already trying to do that. It comes down to execution. So the stuff in off he's not offering at, it's also not standing him up where he's afraid to go back down there, down and away. He's just got a really good idea approach-wise of what he wants to do, and then he has the ability to battle if he does get to two strikes. That's something that you don't see a lot of out of young players, and quite honestly, you don't see it enough in the big leagues of somebody that has an approach with two strikes, that can change it up, that can shorten up the swing, that can get to the baseball. Like, this dude has got the total package, and he's sitting here at 23 years old. He has 7 home runs already. He's a pain in the tail for the opposing starting pitcher. Like, he does a lot of things right. But just again, roundabout to answer your question, I'm making him beat me to the other side. I'm not giving him anything straight middle in, but I think that has been the intention for a lot of guys. The execution has lacked.
We're talking to Brad Thompson here on 101 ESPN. If I took Jordan Walker off the table, who I think is definitively the biggest surprise of the season, what would you say now that we are into May, the month of May, what would you say is your second biggest pleasant surprise for the Cardinals this year, BT?
I mean, it's hard not to pick JJ right behind it just because of what he's been able to do. Yeah, it's hard not to, right? Because offensively, he's putting up the numbers, and you're going to see that average continue to climb. But I'm also, like, really surprised of how seamless and solid he looks at second base. And you knew that he was a good defender. I just didn't think that the instincts would look as good. The first step was look as good. I didn't think he was as athletic as he's shown off. But to me, that one has definitely been there. And then the third one is probably the season that Riley O'Brien has been able to put together early on, although it was, boy, that was I don't know if anybody else almost had a heart attack. I know Riley did with that swing of the bat with Gonzalez, that church end of the game, robbing a home run. But I think that he would be another one of those. Like, I know the bullpen has been an up and down affair so far this season, but he has been a very, very pleasant, very, very big bright spot, I'd say.
You mentioned the guy that I was going to ask as a follow-up there. What do you think the odds would have been on opening day if I told you, hey, Nathan Church is going to be third on the Cardinals in home runs by May 1st?
No, I would have said I don't know what team you're watching. Like, it just didn't seem like the opportunity was going to be there for him, right? To be able to get the at-bats to do that, to do what he's doing right now at this level. It's kind of what some in the organization, I've mentioned this on the broadcast many times, as soon as he got called up, I got a text from Ryan Ludwig, who, works with all these guys in the minor leagues. He goes, dude, you are going to love this guy, and he's going to hit here. And he started off 0 for 15. He was struggling, but to his credit, Dude, Church was the same guy all the time. He was consistent in his work. He's a tremendous defender. He does all of those things right. He's got great instincts in the outfield, and he battles, man. So I know that the staff has loved him, just love having him around. His energy is great. His work ethic is great. And you're right, like that is a one that has to be on that list of biggest surprises of the season, because like you look at him right now, this is a guy, and I don't care if he's going through like some ups and downs offensively. I want him on the field. Like there are just so many different ways that he can help you win a game.
That's one of the biggest things to me that stands out about this club so far, BT, is like they've just got a lot of guys that can influence games in different ways. I mean, Jordan Walker, even defensively, has been really good in the outfield this year. J.J. Wetherholt, we talk about the power. He's also added 4 stolen bases so far this year. Mason Wynn's as good as ever defensively. It's the whole team right now. It's just coming together with winning plays over the course of a game, and it's adding up to one hell of a team to watch so far.
I'm with you, man. And it's not, I know it's not like a sexy thing and you're not like pointing to it all the time, but the way this team runs the bases is winning them games. They take more extra bases than any other team. They make productive outs. They move guys over. Like Ollie mentioned this the other night, and he said, how many times have you seen us not take the extra 90 feet? And I'm like, no, you guys are on it all the time. He goes, because we have to be, right? Like these little details matter so much. So a secondary lead when a pitcher throws a breaking ball, it's in the dirt. These guys are taking the next base. A overthrown cutoff man, their guys are ready for it, and they're taking the extra base. Like this team, while the power has been very surprising to this point, and the offensive output in terms of like runs per game, they're a top 10 offense in baseball. They're higher than that in a lot of different categories. Like while all of those things have been there and been a surprise, the little things are going to be what ends up continuing to win this team ball games, and they know it, and they're taking them seriously.
We were talking about that at the beginning of the year. I know we mentioned it on the podcast, T-Bone. Like they're doing all the little things right, and that's great, but eventually you're going to need more power to be able to make those things matter in a big way. And now we've seen the power come along with it, and they're still doing those little things. It's been fun.
That's why, BT, I'm ready to splurge, man. The rebuild is over.
BT, we'll talk with you again next week, my man. Appreciate the time as always. Enjoy yourself this weekend.
All right, gentlemen, you guys do the same. And T-Bone, I'm going to leave you with a phrase that I think that you've heard in the past, but it feels different now. Be patient.
Oh, I don't know if it feels better since it comes from Heim or not.
Nah, it feels great.
BT, be good, man. Appreciate you. That's Brad Thompson joining us here on 101 ESPN. He joins us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, man, when he says it, now you got to listen. When I say it, you can tell me to bleep off. When BT says it, it's a little bit different. This is a front office that's going to stay disciplined. I
think it's going to turn him against the fan base is what I think.
So,
because I think to be fair, I think it's every front office. But when I say that, how many front offices are actually loved by their fan base?
No, I mean, right now, we've talked about this in the past where how many fan bases are actually happy with where they're at as an organization?
Dodgers. It's about it.
Dodgers are happy. I would say, like, I don't know if A's fans exist anymore. I don't know who the fans would be of that team. But if you're an A's fans, I would think you're a fan of that team. I think Mariners fans are probably pretty happy right now. Toronto fans, I would think, are pretty happy. I know their team isn't very good right now, but they've got a superstar. They kept him long term. I could see that. That might be the list. Because I don't think Cubs fans are super thrilled.
No.
I don't know. Padres, maybe. But I don't know about them.
I don't think so.
Diamondbacks had such a rubber band effect last year. I don't think they're thrilled.
Pirates, like they were kind of happy they spent, but I still think they're not thrilled.
Yeah.
They'd want to see more.
You think Brewers fans are happy?
No.
Okay.
Brewers fan. I listening to a podcast last year. The way I understood it was they were at that point where the Cardinals were as an organization was, we don't care about winning the division. We don't care about winning 90 games. We get to the playoffs and we get shellacked by somebody that's just better than us. We want to see improvements. And then ownership always says, hear me out, we're going to trade Freddie Peralta. Hear me out, we're going to trade away our other best piece or let Willie Adames go to free agency. So, no, I don't think Brewers fans are happy.
Dirk Diggler's unit says the Reds. I don't think so, man. They've had such a bad history that, yes, they're off to a great start so far this season, but I think Reds fans are waiting for them to really invest in the team again before they're truly excited about it. That feels kind of similar to the Orioles a few years ago, where like the first year is great, yeah, but then you've got to capitalize on that to truly feel good about the team moving forward. And that's Cardinals fans are. I think right now, if you're looking at like the approval rating of your front office, I can't imagine there are more than like probably 5 teams across Major League Baseball where their front office has a higher current approval rating than the St. Louis Cardinals. And that's just an interesting that's an interesting spot to be in as an organization where you are going through this rebuild. And if they continue playing well, what does that mean for them? And how will that play with the fan base?
And this is where it gets interesting because everybody, when you say we're going into a rebuild, lowers expectations. But the moment that first sign of winning comes, everybody's ready to go, right? Like, I think the Blues...
Well, not everybody. People like you, definitely. I'm not there just yet.
Well, I think most people will move that direction if they start to win baseball games, and especially if you see an offense that is really outperforming expectations. Because now you're looking at a core that is locked up, and some of those guys, like Walker, to your point, starts arbitration next year. So you've got 3 years of Jordan Walker. We don't know what he'll look like moving forward. We don't know how long you're actually going to have him. So are you going to say you're going to waste the next 2 years of Jordan Walker and just be a fringe 500 team because you're not willing to go out and just add a pitcher? Like, that's a tough sell to a fan base.
He's T-Bone on BK. If you guys missed any of our conversation with Brad Thompson, you can check it out on the podcast page after the show today, 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. That app is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. It's 1:20. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. In 15 minutes, we'll play a game of One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's got to go. But next, Daily Faceoff put out their initial list of the top free agents in the NHL this offseason. All I could think about as I looked at it is, man, where would Jordan Kyrou and Pavel Buchnevich rank on this list? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex out today. He'll be back in with us on Monday. He's at his daughter's field day today. So good for Alex for taking a little bit of time to be with the family. Appreciate you guys tuning in to BK and Ferrario. Daily Faceoff put out to get today their initial list of the top 50 free agents this year in unrestricted free agency for the NHL. There's one top free agent that I think would be traditionally in this class, and that's Alex Tuch. He's a legit top-line player, and in any offseason, he would be somebody that people are really excited to go out there and sign. And then the rest of this list is like a list of AARP-eligible NHL hockey players, most of whom will either re-sign with their own team or retire, is probably the way this thing goes. So they've got Sergei Bobrovsky at number 2, Darren Radish at number 3, who's a 30-year-old defenseman, Rasmus Andersson, who was just traded at the deadline at number 4, and then beyond that, John Carlson, 36, Alex Ovechkin, 40, Evgeny Malkin, 39, and you've got guys like, I guess Charlie Coyle is considered to be a top 10 free agent this offseason. Charlie Coyle is nobody's real definition of a legit top-line type of player. He's a middle six center at the age of 34, and he's a top 9 free agent this offseason. T-Bone, this is an awful year to be diving into free agency if you're an NHL team. If that's how you're trying to upgrade your roster, good luck and God bless, because it ain't going to be easy. And if you're trying to get on Alex Tuch, dude, I have no idea what that contract's going to look like this offseason, but I bet you it's going to surprise a lot of people on how much he's about to get paid.
They're saying like 10 to 12 mil.
That makes sense.
Open market.
Of course, like you've got to sign somebody if you want to upgrade your forward group, and he's the only guy that really changes things in a meaningful way. As a Blues fan, I look at this and I think to myself, man, there are like 2 or 3 guys on that list that I think I would take over even somebody like a Pavel Buchnevich, and Alex Tuch might be the only player on that list who I would take over Jordan Kyrou right now. As you look at the free agency options, T-Bone, does it make you think, hey, maybe there is going to be more of a market for Kyrou and for Buch than we previously had anticipated?
Yeah, I think so, because even when you look at like Kyrou, who we've used reference to a lot, even though he had a bit down year and he had a knee operation, as the Blues announced, I still would bet on him bouncing back and would be willing to go out and acquire him than go to this free agent market and try and improve my team. And I think the same can be said with Buchnevich if the Blues are willing to eat money on it, right? Because a lot of those guys that are available are guys that are available most off seasons, and I would say Buch kind of produces like those guys at this point in his career. That's why you probably have to eat some of the money on it, because I don't think he's worth the $8 million right now, and I think the league would even tell you that and rather go to the free agent market and get those guys. But if you're willing to eat, say, 50% of that deal and get him down to $4 million, I'm with you. He immediately skyrockets up on this list because he's just more productive, better defensively than some of these guys, and younger than some of those guys that are on that list. Because like you said, it's an AARP list when it comes to some of the top free agents. So yeah, I mean, I think with this market, and this is what Alex has been saying a lot, I think you're going to see a lot of trades for the NHL this offseason on how teams are going to try and improve their team. So I do think the value of Kyrou and Buchnevich does start to skyrocket.
As you look at the free agency list, if you're trying to find guys that are just going to come in and immediately produce a bunch of points for you, the only players on this list that a year ago had at least 60 points in the NHL are as follows: Darren Radish, defenseman; Alex Tuch, he had 66 forward, but we just mentioned you're talking like $12 million potentially for him. Alex Ovechkin, he ain't moving. Anthony Mantha, who's basically a one-hit wonder right now. Last season, he had 33 goals with the Pittsburgh Penguins. You better be right if you decide to go in that direction. Evgeny Malkin, again, he ain't moving. It's Pittsburgh or nowhere. John Carlson, another defenseman. Charlie Coyle, who had 58 points last year in 82 games. So he was a 20-goal scorer with 58 points. That's Pavel Buchnevich, man. That's basically what we're talking about with him. Like, Patrick Kane was 8th on this list in most productive free agents that are hitting the market this offseason. Patrick Kane a year ago had 57 points with 16 goals.
That's like Kyrou production.
And he's 37 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Mats Zuccarello had 54 points this past season. He's 38 years old. If you want somebody that is in their early 30s or is not going to get paid an arm and a leg this offseason, I think you might be talking about somebody like a Pavel Buchnevich who, if the Blues are willing to eat some of that contract, maybe there is going to be more of a market than I had previously anticipated after looking at just how depleted the free agent market is this offseason. And for Kyrou, man, like, I think the market's going to be pretty significant because you just can't find other guys on the market free agent wise that you can go and pivot to. We talk about this all the time in Major League Baseball where, hey, if you want to go trade for somebody, look at the free agent market first because you don't have to give up anything of significance in terms of an asset. It's just money. And if you can't get that, now you pivot and go to the trade market and you give up the assets to get, your Brendan Donovan, Wilson Contreras, Sonny Gray, etc. This offseason, I don't think there is that pivot point on the free agency market. So it's just going to be, all right, who are the other players that are available via trade? And that's where you could see, all right, who are the alternatives to Buch, to Kyrou, to some of the players that the Blues have to offer.
And with Kyrou, I mean, like for most of those guys that you're just scrolling through that list, if you're looking at it on the daily faceoff, and they're like at either the back end of their prime or they're already out of their prime. And for Kyrou, he's in his prime. He's in his prime years on a reasonable contract for a guy that if he were hitting the open market today, if he wasn't coming off of a down year, would be getting more than $8 million, right, on the market. He'd probably be sitting around more like 10 would be my guess. 30-goal scorer for 3 straight seasons. You're probably looking at a guy that's getting 10-plus mil. Now you're looking at a guy here that you're willing to bank on in his prime years, just write it off as a weird season. Blues, nothing went right for that team. He kind of fell victim into that. So you acquire him, you hope he bounces back to 30 goals, and he's still in his prime. Yeah, that's going to be one of the best available assets on the market.
From Rhythm Maker, do you two hear yourselves trading Buch for someone that's equivalent? That's absurd. Might as well keep him. Come on, boys. He then adds, they just said retain some money on his contract. That seems ridiculous to me. There are a couple of different ways that you could go about this. One is you attach a draft pick to Pavel Buchnevich, because that's typically the way you see this, especially at the the trade deadline in the past. Teams will attach a draft pick to somebody else to take on a portion of the salary, whatever that may be. That's one way. And if you're going to do that with Buch, you're talking about probably attaching a first-round pick to him because of the number of years, the term that remains on his contract. The other way you can go about it is as the Blues, you just retain, whether it's 25, 50, whatever percentage of his salary, so that way you don't have to then attach a draft pick along with him because he's not worth his current $8 million salary. I don't think anybody would argue otherwise.
Even as the cap's gone up.
Correct. He's not worth that at this point in his career. And if you think he is, well, you just keep him. Otherwise, like, why are you making this move to begin with? But if you're making this trade, you're doing so because the most valuable thing to you as the Blues is that roster spot. It's the playing time. It's the ability for somebody else to be in the top 6 for you. So it's not so much about like the cap space that you get because they're not in a bad cap spot right now. It's not about like what you're getting in return for Buch because I can't imagine you're going to get a whole lot. It's about who could we then allow to get that ice time. Could we get an opportunity for Carbonneau to be in our top 6 if we're keeping Jordan Kyrou here? I know people don't want to hear that, but there's a scenario where Kyrou's still on the team next year and it's Carbonneau and Kyrou as your second-line wingers along with Dalibor Dvorsky. And could that open up a spot on the third line for like an Otto Stenberg, for example, to be with Jake Neighbours and whoever your third line center is next year? That's got to be a scenario, a possibility for the Blues. If they don't do that and they keep Kyrou, how are you getting Carbonneau and Stenberg and Neighbours in the lineup together? It gets really crowded. So if you don't decide to trade Jordan Kyrou, I know people want to, but if you don't decide to do so, this is the kind of thing that the Blues could look for in order to open up that time on the ice for them a year from now. It's something they'll at least have to consider. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You guys give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the LA Dodgers. 7:15 will be first pitch. Emmett Sheehan will be on the mound for LA. Matthew Liberatore will get the start for the St. Louis Cardinals. And if you missed any of our interviews today, we've had the chance to catch up with former NHL goalie Mike McKenna, St. Louis Blues forward Jake Neighbours, and our Cardinals analyst Brad Thompson. If you've missed any of those conversations, be sure to check them out on the podcast page after the show today. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Three 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's gotta go here on BK and Ferrario. From Thanks, Dad. One's gotta go. Overused saying edition. Tell me without telling me. Rent free in your head. I was today years old when I learned ... Or not on my bingo card. Which one of those 4 overused phrases would you use as one's gotta go?
Are these all prompts from like the dating apps from Hinge? That's what they all sounded like. What was the first one? Tell me
without telling me.
I don't know if I've heard that one.
So it's like, tell me without telling me that you've never seen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This. Or that you've never watched the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah. Whatever. Okay. I now know what you're talking about. I would say that one. The other 3, like, I don't mind that one.
Rent free in your head for me. That one's the easy. That one's got to go.
Really?
Yeah. Does nothing for me. I was today years old when I learned. Like, I've definitely used that one. Not on my bingo card. I think we overuse that on this show. It's a crutch for us. Tell me without telling me. Whatever. Rent free in your head is the one that annoys me. Probably the most out of these 4. None of them like get to me, but that one would be the one that's got to go. One's got to go. Potential Cardinals Gold Glove finalist edition. Church, Scott, J.J. Wetherholt, or Mason Wynn. Which one's got to go, T-Bone?
I would say Scott. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's probably not even going to have his job potentially in a month when Newbar comes back. His defense just hasn't been as good this year. Church has been excellent. I mean, he's robbed, 3 home runs so far this year. Mason Wynn looks like a Gold Glove candidate. I know he had a bad play in the Pittsburgh series. And then Wetherholt looks like a Gold Glove candidate. I'd say it's Scott. I don't think it's close.
Yeah, that would be my answer to this as well. Also, Pete Crow Armstrong's probably going to win that. For all of his flaws, and he is not a good hitter this year. Guy's still excellent defensively. I know he makes a few boneheaded plays out there, but he's going to rate really well in all of those statistics. J.J. Wetherholt is actually, in terms of outs above average, the highest rated player on the Cardinals so far this season.
That makes sense because he's plus
4.
Okay, I knew he was somewhere around that range. Tough part for him is he's going to have to win the Gold Glove over Nico Horner.
Yeah.
Because Horner's unbelievable defensively. That guy's going to put up potentially like a 7-WAR season with his defense and his offense this year.
Nathan Church is somehow only a +1 in outs above average. I
would love to know, like, did that one that he caught in Pittsburgh count? Because, like, it was a great play, and as BT said, like, we all thought it was gone when it went off the bat. The expected numbers on it said, like, it was an expected batting average of just 250, which is kind of shocking.
Yeah, you know my thoughts on defensive metrics. I think they're incredibly flawed, especially this early on in the season.
It's like war, huh?
But that would be one of those where I would look at it and say, that doesn't match the eye test. Nathan Church has... I can watch from my own eyes. That guy's been worth more than 1 out compared to your average left fielder. I'm very confident in that. And it's not just what he's doing in the outfield, like making catches that other guys wouldn't. It's also with his arm. He is preventing runners to advance on the bases based upon how well he's done. Who's on first says you have to add to your point. That is definitely an overused phrase on this particular show. That's one that we overuse a lot. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. From the Bean Finder, One's Gotta Go Date Night Edition. Movie, dinner, mini golf, or going on a hike? Movie, dinner, mini golf, or going on a hike? For me, it would be a movie. It's the only one where you can't talk.
Yeah.
All the others, you actually get to know each other. Now, I would assume if you're going to a movie, you're probably doing dinner and then the movie. But in this scenario, that was a separate category.
I've never heard of
I'd say movie.
Going on a hike as something for a date night. I've heard of doing that as an activity. But
this doesn't say first date. So if you wanted to do that as, you guys have been dating for a while, you go on a hike, I could see that.
Yeah. If we're saying it's not the first date, I would probably agree. It probably is a movie. You don't get to talk to each other. So I would agree on that sense. First date, though, going on a hike would be wild.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. 41's got to go. You give us 4 different options. We will tell you which one's got to go. One's got to go Cardinals Young Player Edition. This one could be fun. Jordan Walker, J.J. Wetherholt, Ivan Herrera, and Mason Wynn. Which one's got to go?
I hate to say it, for me, it's not hard. It's Mason Wynn. Herrera's bat keeps him here. I'll figure out his position. Jordan Walker, you don't have a guy that has that kind of tools. And then you look at J.J. Wetherholt. Wetherholt's a stud. And I'll add this. If I removed Mason Wynn, a lot of people would say, well, who's your shortstop? I think it'd be Wetherholt. Wetherholt, you could potentially slide over there to play short because that's what he did in the minors.
Not sure he has the arm for it.
Maybe not. I don't read too much into his arm metrics. I know he grades low on Baseball Savant. Look at where he's throwing the ball from.
Sure.
I think he probably has a better arm than we expect.
I think the answer is Mason Wynn as well. And I say that as a huge fan of his game. But out of these 4, I'm not getting rid of Ivan Herrera because I think he's at least been a capable starter behind the plate this year defensively. As a catcher, I know his arm still does not look great. He's not throwing out runners. I get all of that. But I think their bigger issue with him has been the game planning stuff and his game calling ability. And as far as I can tell, that seems to have been going fine so far this season. There was a good piece by Derek Gould earlier today on some of the process that he's put into place for pregame stuff. And it sounds like he's doing all of the right things and they're trusting him more back there now. So if he can be a 20% above league average hitter and capably start for you behind the plate, there's just too much value in that to get rid of it. And then Walker and Wetherholt have star potential. Mm-hmm. Mason Wynn, while great defensively, does not have, in my opinion, the same upside in his bat that is there for these other 2 guys. So I think you're right. I think it would have to be Mason Wynn. Somebody on the text line said, get rid of Herrera. In that scenario, 19 of our top 20 prospects are catchers. That's a fair point.
That's not wrong.
They don't have, though, anybody other than Rainiel Rodriguez who projects to hit like this as a catcher. Yeah. They have other guys that are interesting, but not many of them have this kind of upside as a hitter.
Yeah, Crooks, it's tough to know what he's going to be as a hitter because he misses so much down in the minor leagues, as you've pointed out. Bernal is more of I'd say Pajes is the way I would describe him based on the way they talk about him, where he's defense first. Rodriguez, you're right. That's the stud bat that they're kind of looking for. But he's 3-4 years away still.
The other thing with Herrera, I think there's value in having guys that win differently as hitters in your lineup. He's a guy that I know right now the average isn't there. He's only batting .248. He's getting on base 42% of the time. What that tells you is teams just aren't throwing anything into the zone. They eventually will have to. They'll have to come back into the zone, and then you'll see the average start to creep up again. He's a guy that legitimately has a chance every season to hit around 300. And hitting for that kind of average in the middle of your order, I still believe has some value. And you guys know I'm a numbers nerd, but there's value in that. And you want different types of skill sets littered throughout your lineup. And you don't have a whole lot of other guys that hit for that kind of average. It's basically him and Alec Burleson.
Yeah, Wetherholt might eventually become that guy.
Maybe.
But look at the Blue Jays from last year. The Blue Jays were kind of that team. Mm-hmm. Slug Baby Slug is the main driving force to how you're going to win in October. You also need to have guys that can get on base, not just with their walks, right? They got to be able to hit the baseball, get on with that batting average. As the Blue Jays showed, they just didn't strike out. It's why they pushed the Dodgers so much that they did in that World Series last year.
Last thing here before we get to the rewind on the other side from the 314. So no guest appearance from Woozy today with the Dodgers in town. I actually talked with Katie last night, planning to see her out of the ballpark this weekend. She'll be covering the game in St. Louis as she has now taken over as the Dodgers beat writer for The Athletic. My plan right now is for us to get her on early next week to react to this series because I knew we had already had Brad Thompson, Jake Neighbours, and Mike McKenna on today. 4 guests, just candidly, in a 3-hour show is a lot. there's not a whole lot of time for runway for us to actually give you our thoughts on things. So my hope is to have Katie on with us on Monday to be able to break down what she sees from the Cardinals, because my guess is she probably hasn't seen a whole lot from them this season. So this will be an opportunity for us to get her impression on how much different they look today compared to the team that she watched over the last few seasons.
And look, the Cardinals are fun and all. Would I rather watch the Dodgers and Ohtani, Freeman, Betts, so on and so forth, Tucker and them, or the Cardinals? I'm not going to lie, I would pick the Dodgers too.
Coming up next, we're going to hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Couple things to pass along. One, news for the Missouri Tigers. BYU transfer guard Kyrou Davis Jr. has officially committed to Mizzou. The 6'6" junior and St. Louis native averaged about 8.5 points per game this past season. He previously had been a star for Southern Illinois. He's a really big guard. I think he's like 6'5". So Mizzou's coming into next year with some real size. He's not a point guard. He's somebody that's going to be more of like a traditional wing that's playing the shooting guard position. They already added one of those in the transfer portal as well. So I would imagine they're still one guard away from getting their final roster. But Kyrou Davis is a heck of a talent to add in this late in the portal season as well, adding in the latest addition there. Also, this comes from Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports. Just some cool news, nice story on the state of Missouri. High school states with the most NFL players drafted in the 2026 NFL draft in terms of per capita. Number 1 is Iowa. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Bama. Number 4, Maryland. Number 5, the state of Missouri with 9 different NFL players that were drafted into this year's NFL draft. 1 player per 680,000 people was drafted in Missouri.
Interesting. I'm not surprised to hear Iowa high on that list. I wasn't surprised to hear Alabama. Maryland a little bit, but Missouri, top 5. All right.
Pretty good.
That makes sense. We've seen some good talent come out of the area here lately. I mean, Love, as we mentioned. Brett Norfleet, tight end, was up in the area here in St. Louis as well.
Yep. All right. So let's get into this, T-Bone. The Rewind here on BK and Ferrario. If you guys missed anything from the show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app. That's always sponsored by Schaefer Door Company. Cardinals play 3 games this weekend against the Dodgers. I'll be out there tonight as a fan. I will be out there on Sunday to cover the game. So it's going to be a weird series. That's all I know. Friday and Sunday will be weird. Dustin May on the mound on Sunday. McGreevy tomorrow. Libby gets the start tonight against Sheehan. How you feeling going into this thing, T-Bone?
I think the offense is going to give them a fighting chance in this series. You know, they're going to avoid the best arms. They're going to avoid Yamamoto. They're going to avoid Glasnow. They get a chance to avoid some of those guys, Ohtani as well. I think the offense gives them a chance. I just don't think they're going to have the pitching to stop this lineup. I mean, this lineup is performing well without guys like Freddie Freeman hitting right now. We know Freddie Freeman can turn it on at any point. So I think they drop 2 of 3 this weekend. I do think they're going to remain competitive, though. I don't think this is going to be one of those series where we come back here on Monday and go, wow, that was 3 games of just a pure ass kicking from the LA Dodgers. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to be in most of these games. I just think they're going to drop 2 or 3 because I don't think they've got the pitching.
I think these matchups are really interesting because, like, you look at Emmett Sheehan. Fastball is the thing that has been the biggest issue for him so far this year. Just hasn't been very productive. Now, his breaking ball's been amazing. Fastball has been terrible. Can the Cardinals lay off of the breaking ball enough to be able to attack his fastball? That's something they did against Paul Skeens yesterday. Can they do it again today against Emmett Sheehan? That's going to be the test tonight. You look at Roki Sasaki. Well, he's going to walk the world. Can you take advantage of that? Are you going to be able to avoid the swing and miss, which has still been there for him this season, and take advantage of the fact that he's going to give you some free bases and then pound his fastball as well? And then Sunday, Wroblewski's maybe the most interesting of these starters that you're going to see over the weekend. He's been really good this year. However, he doesn't strike anybody out. He is a guy that just induces a ton of soft contact, so are you going to be able to take advantage of that? He's also a lefty, and you've had some success against left-handed pitchers so far this year. Look at what Jordan Walker and what Ivan Herrera have done against them.
Mason Wynn
has quietly been really good against left-handed pitchers as well. That's going to be interesting to me. I also wonder if they consider going with just a straight platoon on Sunday as well, where you see Nolan Gorman get that day off. And it's going to be a Ramon Urias game at third base to just stack that lineup with a bunch of right-handed hitters. That's something else to keep in mind going into the weekend as well. I think you lose 2 out of 3 in this series because I think their lineup's just going to be too much to overcome, and they're just going to put up a ton of runs against you, especially once they get to your bullpen. Oh boy, that could get ugly. But I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be a really fun weekend out there. Tonight's Diet Coke night at the Cardinals game.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Get your Diet Coke t-shirts. Don't forget to buy those theme tickets if you haven't done so already. And I'll be out there. I'll be up, as you can always expect, in the right field corner, very upper deck.
Just giving away the secret
$5
spot.
beers up there. If you see me, feel free to say hello. I'll be out there with the family this evening. Happy to grab a couple of beers with you guys up there in the Budweiser Terrace. I think they end up winning the game tomorrow with McGreevy on the mound and Sasaki be going up against them. Yeah, that's the game I think they are able to get.
You're probably going to go Sunday, and you're covering the game on Sunday, so you're going to see the old getaway lineup.
Bingo. Yep.
Yuck. I'll agree with you. I think they will drop 2 of 3. Saturday feels like their game. I'll be curious to see what McGreevy looks like against this lineup because his stuff hasn't graded particularly well this year. It's gotten better over the last couple of starts, but this is one of those like big boy matchups you're going up against, and he's a finesse pitcher working the corner. So he's one I'm most interested to see. I'll be curious to see if Libby bounces back tonight. Mm-hmm. He got clobbered by the Mariners in his last outing, and his bounce back opportunities against, the Dodgers. So it'll be interesting to see what he looks like against this lineup.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys missed any of the show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. Had some good interviews today. Enjoyed our conversation with Brad Thompson and Mike McKenna as we do each and every Friday. Also had an opportunity to talk to Jake Neighbours, Blues young forward. Had some really good thoughts on what went wrong for the Blues this season, what he's hoping to get accomplished this offseason, and what kind of value he places on A, the captaincy overall, and B, being a captain at some point in his NHL career. So you can check all of that out on the podcast page and on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. And when you go over there to the YouTube page, that is where you can find the latest edition of the Redbird Report, where me and T-Bone sat down and talked about the Cardinals for about an hour yesterday. So be sure to check that out over on the YouTube page as well. For Tanner and for Alex, who was not in today, but will be back in with us on Monday, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll talk to you Monday at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.